I think the debate and the interest around AI, as we've noticed, the market and the industry is very excited about it, specifically around the governance and the data quality aspects of AI and the different industries' approaches to the adoption within their own various organizations. It's quite an interesting insight.
Data management has never been more important than right now, especially because of Gen AI and advanced analytics coming through.
The world of AI is going to be extremely challenging in the data governance space. We really need to join forces to find the right answer to this problem.
I think the problem was how we ended up with this fragmented system is because we work separately from each other.
Even from an augmented reality perspective, the data needs to be correct. So just think these technologies sit so closely together, and anybody looking to implement technology needs to understand and manage both very carefully.
DataVision really sort of exemplified this concept of community, leveraging the knowledge that you have in not just the room, but across the entire association that we saw today. Really then helps us move forward in the world of data and think about it differently.
We don't have perspectives from outside world, so I think that really helps us to really understanding the trends, understanding the direction of travel, understanding what the others are doing, how they're solving the same problems that we are trying to solve. So it's extremely enriching, and it's a very, very good council to be part of.
There's nothing like learning from your peer. The data community is just so open. There's no one person here that knows all the answers, but it's through that community that we lift each other up.
A network, a very strong network of individuals, high caliber individuals bringing a lot of intel and bringing a lot of insights in, which is helping the industry significantly.
We also want to be working with EDM to ensure that people are using data for good, that they're using it ethically and responsibly, that we're using that to create better AI models that have less bias, that are more fact-based, less opinion-based. And I think there are a number of projects across all of our industries where we can pull data to do better research and actually deliver real benefit back to society, as well as making more money for our businesses.
To the stage, our President, John Bottega.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for allowing me to be here, even though we got beat badly last night. And but it's great to be here again. A year ago, I had the pleasure of announcing our planned acquisition of the Object Management Group to form a new organization, the EDM Association. So what I'd like to do to start is just give you a quick update on where we are on that and the progress we've made. And then we've got a fantastic program today, so we'll launch right into that. But the question you may ask is, well, why did we do this? Why did we decide to acquire the OMG? And it's pretty simple to us. It was an opportunity. It was an opportunity to build a unique trade association that brings together not just data, but software, systems engineering, knowledge engineering into one organization. It is unique. I don't know of any other trade association that brings all of those disciplines and all those capabilities together. And we did it, as you can see, to bring the community innovation best practices to try to stand alone in the market and be unique to the market, to be the place that you want to go to as a trade association as you navigate throughout your careers in this ever-changing environment of AI and analytics, and just it never stops. We want to be the go-to organization to build trust, and that's what you're going to hear a lot about today, especially in the world of AI. I think everybody now recognizes that if you don't feed trusted data to your AI models, you end up with some funny results. So building the trust in that data and helping organizations drive through this transformation of AI and analytics. So what I want to do is spend a few minutes just telling you about the new organization. So we are now an organization of 4 critical leading consortia that are going to help the industry drive through this AI transformation. First is the one that you're probably most familiar with, and that's the Data and Analytics. That's the traditional EDM Council. And there you're going to see the usual services and capabilities that we've had in the past. The DCAM, the CDMC, our FIBO, the ontology, and of course the data excellence program that helps you drive your programs. Now when you look at data and analytics as a function, well, you're going to see that it continues to fuel this transformation of AI. And the key thing there is, how's that growth? And in looking at different studies, we still see a significant growth in the data and analytics space as companies invest as they prepare for AI. So almost 177% increase over the next coming years. Now here are some of the new things that you may not be familiar with. Our standards organization, we are now an official standards body. And there are a bunch of standards here. The OMG Standards Development Organization has worked with industry for the past 36 years and built hundreds of standards that are used all throughout industry, in manufacturing, military, in research areas. In fact, this is kind of exciting, NASA uses our standards. So we can claim, rightly or wrongly, that we helped that moon flight. And maybe to Mars, so we'll see. But a couple of things that, who here remembers UML? Who coded in UML? Right? That's an OMG standard from 30 years ago. Right? And now you've got other standards, SysML, real-time data content, data product descriptions and standards around that. A big topic now. You're going to hear a lot about that today, about data products and business processes. And then the sought-after certification for those professionals who want to get certified in these various standards. And that's what the Standards Development Organization does. Best describe it, and I'm going to read it because the words are better than my saying it. According to World Bank, international standards functions as foundational global infrastructure influencing trade, manufacturing, safety, digital, and supply chain. The World Bank emphasizes that standards have reshaped the world economy. So if there's any doubt about how standards impact what we do, that's not me saying that, that's them. Anticipated investment in that to go from $2.5 billion over close to $5 billion, 83% increase. The next is a very exciting area, digital twin. Who in the room is familiar with or has worked with digital twins? Anybody? Few. So this is a fascinating analytic. It's a simulation, but a little bit different. You'll hear more about it today. I don't want to steal the thunder of some of our speakers. But digital twins are basically simulations that marry both static and real-time data, so constantly updating environments. And you'll see digital twins in telecommunications. In fact, Verizon has mapped all 120,000 cell sites in their digital twin, and they can tell you exactly when a cell site goes down, who's affected by it. They can also do it from a safety perspective, because network vulnerability is an important thing. Right? And if you wondered why we did the acquisition with OMG and does it fit into our data and capability concept, look at that graph on the right. Look what's at the bottom of the digital twin. Data. And it's not just data, but look at the next one, the context of that data, the semantic modeling, the absolute unambiguous definition of that data that leads then into the analytic, which enables the actualization of the model. So you're going to see there's some stands outside that talk a little bit more about digital twin, a really fascinating area. And what's really exciting about digital twin is it is a hyper-growth area. Digital twin is expected to grow over 600% from a $21 billion investment to over $150 billion in the next couple of years. So you're going to see digital twin married with AI really starting to evolve across all industries. And the fourth consortium is augmented reality. You may have spotted some of that on the way in with the glasses. It's not just your kids' games anymore. Okay, it's used in manufacturing. In fact, it's used in some amazing places. Augmented reality is being used in manufacturing, in operating rooms. In fact, one of our colleagues had knee replacement. The entire, he told us, surgery was done with augmented reality while the surgery was going on. In construction, and this is the one that I find most amazing when you talk about data for good, augmented reality is being used to help recovering patients, in this case, stroke patients, to help stimulate parts of the brain that were damaged in the stroke, and they're using augmented reality. Now again, why is this part of our organization? It depends on data. And Mark, are you here? Where is Mark? So go see Mark later, and he's gonna, we got a bunch of goggles for people to try out. You're not gonna be operating on anybody, don't worry about it, it's just regular stuff. But really, really fascinating technology. And that brings now the EDM Association, not just data, but across multiple capabilities all around this transformation of AI and capability. So hopefully I've convinced you that we're a different organization now. In fact, hopefully I convinced you, well, let me give you the metrics on this. 300% increase in investments over the next several years. So this is the new EDM Association. And what I like to say, it's not your grandfather's EDM anymore. Okay. So welcome to the new EDM Association, and welcome to the EMEA London DataVision. So let me get started by just giving you the theme of the day, gold in, gold out. So we've talked about garbage in, garbage out, and we decided that's too negative, right? We need really good stuff going in and even better stuff coming out. So that's the theme you're going to hear throughout the day. And I'll start by first thanking our friends here at UBS. So round of applause for the UBS guys. This is just a fantastic venue. We were here last year, and thank you for having us again this year. The facility is fantastic, all of the food and everything. So again, thank you for that. Just fantastic. And let me thank all of our sponsors. You're going to hear from Digital Isle of Man today, LSEG, Projective Group, Element 22, Orteca, and Solidatus. They are all outside. Please have time, spend with them. I've had the opportunity to meet and know all of them over the years. Really good people, really smart people. So talk to them about what they bring to the table and how they work with the EDM Association. Just fantastic people to talk to. So a pretty packed agenda. We're going to be talking about trusted data, mining the gold. We're going to have a fireside chat on AI. We're going to talk about unlocking the gold, and then a spotlight on some of the new work that's going on around augmented reality. We'll then have a break. I said this last year, I'll say it again, we lock the doors so you can't leave after the break. You have to come back after the break. So enjoy the break, then come back in. We have a couple more panels to discuss around data excellence. We're going to talk about CDMC and AI, into a discussion on AI, and then a very interesting, I've been told it's going to be a rather interesting last panel on the data excellence gym. So you don't need your gym shorts or anything like that, but it's going to be an interesting panel to wrap us up. So without any further ado, let me introduce James Dallas, Head of Investment Banking at UBS, and he's going to kick us off. James.
Thanks, John, for the welcome, and welcome on behalf of UBS to everyone who's here. Special welcome to everyone who's come back. The seats are obviously comfy, the food is as good as John said, and maybe you're interested in the speakers as well. In my role overseeing data, change and AI for the investment bank at UBS, we spend an awful lot of time talking about AI, as you can probably imagine. We talk about its potential, we talk about its impact, the evolution, but in reality, AI isn't the whole story. AI is the amplifier, and it sits on top of what? It sits on top of data. AI doesn't itself create value. It only creates value if you've got data and good data to feed it. John talked about gold. Well, I've got some colleagues here at UBS who know a thing or two about gold. There's some guys in a vault. I have visions of a cave. I've never actually been there. But in a vault in Switzerland who have forklift driver's licenses, they have steel toe-cap shoes, and they move bars of gold about. They're probably the only people in UBS who actually move something physical. Everyone else in UBS moves data. When the data is good, the AI makes us strong. It enables us to make decisions quickly. when the data is weak, the AI enables us to make bad decisions quickly. And that's where things start to become uncomfortable. Because AI is transforming banking, but across our industry, it's also exposing some uncomfortable truths. It's exposing facts about our data which were previously probably known about, but a little bit hidden. They were sitting in the dark. We could sort of close our eyes and pretend that we couldn't see them. We plaster over them with a few manual processes, a few corrections, and everything would be all right. AI is shining a big, bright, shiny spotlight on them and exposing all of those cracks and weaknesses. And if we zoom further out, we're moving into the world of agentic AI. So we're not just talking about modeling and data turning into better reports and better insights. We're talking about data turning into execution, and we don't want to get execution wrong. Data then is a source of value and also a source of risk. Historically, data owners have wanted to put their arms around their data. It's mine, get off, leave it alone, only I understand it, you have to talk to me. We need to move data owners from thinking about my data to thinking about our data. Historically, they've sought to protect things. They've sought to optimize for their local processes, their local requirements. We need to incentivize them to reuse, to make their data accessible, and to deliver value for the whole enterprise, not just their little bit of it. Because when poor data feeds an AI model, you don't just get a flawed report, you get flawed decision-making at scale and at speed. I was at an AI panel event recently, and Fernando Lucchini, who's the Chief AI Officer of faculty, made a comment which stuck with me and a number of other people who were there. He said, it's never been cheaper to get to an AI demo, and it's never been more expensive to get to production. And for me, part of that is everyone can build a demo, not everyone can scale them. And the reason they can't scale them is they generally can't access the data isn't good enough quality, and therefore they get something that works in the lab but doesn't work in reality. So we need to, as we scale AI, we need to address those challenges, drive up the quality, the accessibility, and the trustworthiness of the data. And in banking, the stakes are even higher. We operate in a highly regulated environment. We have impact on systemic markets. We impact our clients and other institutions economically if we get stuff wrong. So failure to scale is not just an efficiency issue or a technical issue. It's a financial issue, it's a conduct issue, and worst case, it's a regulatory issue. At UBS, we've invested over the last decade significantly in data management. We have ownership, we have standards, we have governance, we have lineage, and more recently, we've invested in AI. We have inventories, we have guardrails, we have oversight. But our challenge as an industry is not recognizing that data matters. We're all here, we all know that. Our challenge is operationalizing that at scale. So why is this so difficult? I've got a list of 3. I was trained as a consultant. Every consultant has a list of 3 things. I'm sure you can add to it. Number 1, standardization and reuse. Too many copies, too much transformation, lineage that's too hard, too many versions of the same data. Number 2, measurement. How do we actually know how good this data is, and how do we justify the investment to make it better? And linked to that, how do we actually measure the quality of data Instinctively, as a human, you can look at a piece of data, you can go, this person's earning £10 million, that's probably wrong, certainly in my world. But how do we actually codify that into rules? And actually, this is one of the areas where we talk about data helping AI, but actually in data quality, I would argue that AI can help data. Ultimately, I would say, if you can't measure and control the quality of your data, you can't scale safely your AI on top of it. Which brings me to governance. John Smart wrote an excellent book about Agile called Sooner, Safer, Happier. And in that book, he says, the better the brakes, the faster you can go. And I think we can all sympathize with this. If you've driven a dodgy old car, you don't really want to be going at 90 miles an hour. And the same is true of data and AI. People assume that governance slows innovation, but in reality, good governance enables innovation. It creates consistency, trust, and confidence, and importantly, in our industry, gives our regulators confidence too. So governance shouldn't be seen as a constraint on innovation. It should be seen as what makes safe innovation possible and at scale. So, what should we do as senior leaders, data leaders in our respective industries? Treat data as an asset, invest in it. You invest in your house, you invest in your car, they're your biggest assets at home. You need to invest in your data at work. Industrialized data products, John mentioned it in his intro, the need to make data available at scale within your organization with appropriate controls and access and so on. Embedding governance by design. So governance gets tacked on as a bit of an afterthought. I joke with my team about having clipboards and pencils and going around checking stuff off. That doesn't scale. We need to embed governance into the architecture and have it embedded into the entire life cycle of the process. And finally, aligning business and technology around a shared accountability. This isn't a business problem, it's not a tech problem, it's a both problem. So I'd argue then that AI strategy without a data strategy is not transformation, it's just experimentation. So, to finish, the winners in this race are not necessarily those who have the best AI models, the biggest models, the fanciest demos, the most AI headlines on the front page of the FT. The institutions that will succeed are those who have the most advanced AI, but also have the most trusted and the most efficiently governed data that underpins it. So with that, I will close. I will leave you to enjoy the sessions for the rest of the day, and I look forward to seeing some of you afterwards.
Thank you, James. So let's have our first presentation. I invite Aga and Lyle to the stage. And I'm going to, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, then I'm going to give you a little setup.
Okay.
Okay, so just introduce yourselves.
All right, thanks, John. I'm Lyle Raxall. I'm Chief Executive of Digital Isle of Man.
Hi, I'm Aga Stranskov, and I'm Head of Data Strategy at Digital Isle of Man.
So we're going to be talking about mining business value through trusted data. So I want to start off with just a little bit of a kind of a preview of, you know, why do we care about this stuff? So why is data important and why is data management important? So I think you agree that data is now recognized as a strategic asset. It should be recognized as a strategic asset because it does those things that's on that list. It drives innovation, it mitigates risk, and enhances the customer experience. Why is data management important? Because you have to manage the asset. And we've learned now over the past couple of decades, modern data management isn't just an easy thing. It's a multifactorial type of activity. It involves everybody in an organization. And it does the things that that chart says to ensure accuracy, operational efficiency, enables governance, supports analytics, et cetera. So those two, right, obviously the asset and the ability to manage that asset are critically important. So let's look at what high quality data gives us. High quality data gives us a lot of positives. It protects us, it informs, it enables competition, creates efficiencies, it uncovers opportunities, discovers insights, it drives medical breakthroughs. Data is at the heart of pretty much every discovery we can imagine. But let's look at the opposite. What does mismanaged data do? And this is all over the newspapers and all over media, right? You have cybercrime, you have privacy infringement. As Jane, you just said, leads to bad decisions, right? It isn't just that the data's bad, but the decisions are bad. You have reputational risk when your data's bad. So I want to take those two and kind of compare them to each other. If we look at high quality data and mismanaged or low quality data, what is the dollar value of those groups of assets? Well, I think you would argue that there's a big difference. The high quality data has high value. The low quality data has low value, or in fact, has negative value. So the question that's out there is, how do you measure the value of that data? So there's a ways we can look at it. We can look at it from the perspective of intrinsic value. If you look at the definition of intrinsic value, it's the calculation of the true worth of the asset through its fundamentals, its cash flow, its growth, its risks, et cetera. Right? Apply intrinsic value to data, well, the definition is it's the inherent worth of that information. But I still haven't gotten to a dollar value yet. Now, there's another way of looking at data, and you can look at it from an instrumental value perspective, and that is, how do I apply that data to an operation, to a function, and does that function produce value, dollar value? So the challenge that we face is it possible then to put a true dollar value on our information asset? Now, according to the IFRS, and everybody's familiar with the IFRS, data is treated not as a measurable asset, but as an intangible asset. And according to that rule, in order to put a dollar value on, it has to follow very strict criteria. And in most cases, the data that we produce internally within our organizations fails at one of these criteria. And when it fails at one of these criteria, the information asset ends up being an expense instead of a tangible asset on the books. So how do we get around that problem? And why is it important? Because putting dollar value on information, it becomes a recognized asset, clarifies ownership, elevates the priority of data for your AI programs, qualifies it as a value of the asset for recovery insurance should an event occur, justifies investment in an acquisition. Right? It enables measurement of ROI. And with that, the question is, how can we assign true value? I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues who's going to tell you about an innovative program that the Isle of Man is running right now that can maybe answer these questions. So I turn this over to you guys.
Thank you very much, John. Slides. So I think those of you here last year will remember us talking about data asset foundations here in this room. And that was a really interesting point of time for us. That was the third year of running this program. And I would say that was the point in time where this program, this initiative, turned into a movement rather than just an initiative. We formed partnerships with people in this room. Notably, Element 22 and Amplify, who are both here today, have made many trips to the Isle of Man working with our businesses. And some of our island businesses are here today as well to talk to people more around data asset foundations and where we are. So we have made significant progress from last year's talk. Most importantly, we have agreed our primary legislation through our Parliament, which is called Tynwald, and that has now received royal assent. So the hardest part of the task is done in terms of actually being able to say that data is now an asset on the Isle of Man. We've done a lot of work in creating the framework. There is a lot of complication, detailed kind of work that's going into what we call secondary regulation, which is really the detailed rules that we're talking through. And we are currently hiring our first data asset registrar for the island, as well as have a tender out for the data asset register, which we hope will be available and live early next year. We've been running a pilot program through this year with a number of businesses who have been working through the Data Asset Foundation, what it means to set it up, what works, what doesn't, how do we remove some friction, how do we make sure that the governance is strong and that we're doing the right things. And we are just in preparation to start launching a go live where we'll open up the doors to other organizations who want to start coming on this journey with us. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Aga, who's really done most of the hard work on this, to talk through some more of the detail.
Thank you, Leo. So what is data economy today? I think one could argue that data economy exists in a remarkably underdeveloped institutional framework. So think about any other mature asset class, land securities, ships, aircraft. Every one of them rests on the same institutional framework, the title, governance, and rights that you can actually enforce and verify. There's data, arguably the most valuable asset of this century, has none of them. So no recognized property right. So ownership is asserted, not held. A lot of people confuse ownership with being a custodian or controller of the data. No fiduciary duty to care for that data. So stewardship is voluntary, and data governance is based on voluntary participation in a data governance program. So it's still in the contractual sphere. No accounting standards, so value is invisible on the balance sheet, no enforceable market infrastructure, and no valuation-based insurance. These gaps aren't new. What's new is that AI has made them really expensive. Data is now consumed at machine speed and scale, and every one of those missing foundations costs risk a deal that hasn't happened. So the question we set ourselves was this: how do you supply what the market never built? Rights, accountability, and enforceability. Our answer is a statutory regime that turns data into an asset class. 5 components: a legal framework, primary legislation conferring property rights in data and defining data as an asset. A statutory public register where those rights are created and recorded. Embedded governance into law, not in a contract. So standards bound into the asset itself, not bolted on afterwards. Evaluation framework so the data can be valued consistently, accounted for and audited on a consistent basis. And controlled rights-aware distribution channels. But before the register makes sense, we need to be precise about what's actually being registered. See, it's not the data set itself. That's the single most important definitional point in the regime. A data set on its own is valuable but legally inert. So no title, no terms, no provenance. What the regime registered is a composite object, the data bound to its governance wrapper. The wrapper carries the classification, the rights, the purpose, the provenance and lineage, and the assurance and compliance record. Data plus the wrapper equals the registered data asset. And the property right attaches to that composite, never to the data alone and never to the wrapper, governance wrapper itself. Why does that matter? Because binding the governance into the asset mark makes accountability structural rather than voluntary. The rules travel with the data wherever it goes, and you cannot hold the asset without holding its obligations. So owning anything is a bundle of rights and responsibilities. So where do these assets live, legally speaking? In the register, there is a prima facie authoritative and critically separate from the parties transacting. The separation is the whole point. When the two parties deal in the registered assets, both reason from the same verified facts, not from each other's assertions. It's the same institutional move that land registries and securities and depositories made for the asset classes, replaced bilateral trust with an authoritative record. So what does a register entry actually contain? It's 5 sections. Foundation governance, who holds the asset, the stewardship roles, the charter, the rules. The asset core, its identity, its classification, the boundary profile, and purpose. Rights and encumbrances, dedication, licenses, security interests, charges, AI use terms. Provenance and composition, which is the lineage, the source assets, and in case of AI, generated assets, AI provenance, where models were involved. And assurance and compliance, the accreditation, independent accreditation, data protection status, and integrity chain. Everything material about the asset is in one place, the authoritative record. That's what makes the due diligence a lookup rather than an investigation. Sorry. So it is important also to say what the, sorry, my notes. What the asset is not and what it is. It is a statutory, so its existence and effects are defined in primary legislation. It's constitutive, meaning that the full registration creates the legal right. It's prima facie authoritative. Entries are presumed accurate until proven an error or fraud. And it's dynamic, so it records the current status and the full history and growth, but also it records the declared growth, so i.e. the future growth of the asset. As we know, the data changes throughout the life cycle. And it is also important to say what it is not. It does not hold the underlying data sets. It does not validate data quality. And registration is not automatic. You earn the right by meeting the requirements. And it does not override data protection or intellectual property law. Those regimes continue to apply in full and live alongside this register. So a statutory right is only as useful as ability to prove it, ideally instantly and ideally without phoning the registrar or carrying out a long due diligence process. So the register is built on 4 pieces of verification infrastructure. Semantic interoperability, meaning is everything, or we know that shared meaning is vital for us to work together with the same assets. So assets are described in shared standard-based terms, so they are understood the same way everywhere. The asset passport, a verifiable credential that asset carries with it, its terms, identity, checkable on site, including offline. And the integrity chain, a tamper evidence record proving the asset state hasn't been altered. And the verification agent that automates the checking of the asset integrity. The theme across all 4 is the same. You can verify, not just assert. That's the difference between a claim and an asset. So if we come back to the 5 gaps I opened with and look at the shape of the solution, the register does 2 things. It settles rights, a recognized enforceable property right, and it settles accountability. Governance bound into the asset with real stewardship duties, just those 2. But those 2 are the load-bearing ones. Once you have enforceable rights and structural accountability, the other 3 gaps stop being problems the state has to resolve and become problems that the market can and should resolve. So the design philosophy in one line is settle 2 gaps and the other 3 resolve.
Okay. Thanks, Aga. We have a stand outside. We've got the 2 of us and our colleague Chris at the back. If you want to learn more, please do come out and discuss with us. We do have a roadmap for functionality drops through the next 24 months, which we can discuss with you. And if you want to partner with us, work with us in any way, please do come along and let us know. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
some barcodes to, the QR codes to hit. Recognize the significance of this project to be able to put dollar value on information. I mean, we've been managing this for many, many decades without having that ability. So this is really exciting stuff. So please go talk to them outside afterwards, learn more about this project. And Chris is going to be out there at the stand as well. All right, Sonia and Emma, where are you? There we go. Oh, I think you're doing solo, right? I heard? Okay, well, I will turn this over to you then.
Right. Hi, everyone. Emma York here. So, yes, you'll notice I am solo. You only get me. Sorry, not two for the price of one today. Also, I do, however, have 2 roles at LSEG, so maybe you do get a bit of 2 for 1. I'm the Corporate Chief Data Officer, and I also run data enablement across the enterprise. So I'm responsible for frameworks and controls and policies, but also implementation and transformation and innovation. And I guess kind of coming back to the theme of the day, regardless of which role which hat I'm wearing on any given conversation, everything comes back to governance, quality, innovation, transformation. It has to work together. And that's why I was going to be excited to share the stage with Sanya, because we come at the topic from different angles, because she's head of our model risk management. We're from LSEG, which stands for the London Stock Exchange Group. Now, I saw lots of confused faces when I said LSEG, less confused faces when I said London Stock Exchange, because you probably know what that is, right? But you might be wondering why I've got so many blobs on that map there, because clearly that's bigger than London. The G is really important. We're a group. We run way more than the stock exchange business, very much multiple business lines. We're a market infrastructure, but also a data provider. Data is quite literally at the heart of everything we do. And then just to flash it up, you can really see the breadth and the depth of what we're doing here in terms of the trade life cycle. And really to state the obvious to my data colleagues in the room, data governance, trust control, they're so important because that's what unifies all of this. It stretches across, it's the tissue that runs and connects. Now, I'm often on that side of the floor listening to panels and speakers, and honestly, something that frustrates me a little bit is it's quite often not practical. So I have got permission to share some of our actual frameworks, some of our actual models. Hope you guys find that interesting, and we're going to talk a little bit, or I will be on behalf of myself and Sanya, talking about kind of where data fits into all of that as well. So firstly, quickly, a bit of interaction. Give me a raise of your hand if data controls are fully integrated into your AI. Completely, everything's there. No hands. Not surprised. Mine's not up either. Just quickly, the risk taxonomy, so this is our real risk taxonomy. The way that we've approached this is that AI is across all of our existing control taxonomy. So you'll see we've highlighted data. Data is one of the deliberate primary focuses. When we talk about AI frameworks and responsible AI, data is at the front of that conversation. Deliberately use the EU AI definition. We don't have a different flavour of that. I'll come on to the principles in a second. So in terms of framework, we're managing it in a very structured way, very end-to-end, and AI kind of risk is embedded within this life cycle. It does cover the full life cycle, so we go all the way through to the kind of disposal or retirement of products. And something that we worked hard on was quite clear roles and responsibilities. So the different kind of where does first line start and stop, where does second line come in. The framework is useful because it gives us guardrails. So it allows us to scale quicker because this is a really simple-ish diagram. It took a lot to get everybody to agree to that one simple diagram, but now we've done it, we can scale quicker. We can call back to it. So as promised, here are our actual responsible AI principles. I'm sure you've probably all got something a little bit similar. What I really want to share is how these principles kind of bed in and are concrete, repeatable validation checks. So these underpin how we actually assess and validate our AI models. And data's obviously woven within that as well. So I won't spend too long on that slide. Oh, okay, I don't have the slide. So things like regulatory compliance, data protection, they're non-negotiables, they're entry criteria. We don't just talk about accuracy and fairness, which is really quite easy to do and everyone gets it. What's less easy is actually not assuming that you have it, but actually validating it and unpicking often quite complex chains to try and get to that heart of, do we really have accuracy and fairness? All of this, again, is really important because it gives us auditability. It means that we can live and breathe by these kind of rules and these frameworks and these structures. And then let's get into where data fits into that. So just a quick callback to John's kind of slide of gold in, gold out. I think that's wonderful. If you've got that starting position of gold, well done you. You might be the only one in this room that's starting with that gold, that's got the gold out the end as well. It's quite a long, kind of a long-held view, isn't it? That data quality and everything else has to be there. It's the foundation. You can't have AI without having that gold input as well, kind of governance before AI. One of the mindset shifts that I'm trying to kind of talk about and actually live and breathe internally at LSEG is AI, it's bidirectional. So why don't we get to the point where we're thinking about, maybe it's not gold, maybe it's bronze coming in, but maybe the AI, you create an AI, a governance bot, or we call it AI data steward, which is within your solution, which gives you that conversion from maybe bronze in to truly gold out. So I think one of the interesting concepts is how can AI be that accelerator, truly that accelerator, and help leapfrog some of these steps. So you don't have to spend years and years, because we've already lost that. We haven't got years and years to build that foundation. I'm not saying, obviously, that we don't need to spend time fixing those foundations, investing in our data. We have to supercharge governance because it is that prerequisite. But I think something that isn't talked about enough maybe, or I think maybe later on today it will be, is the opportunity to use AI to create those governed assets in the first place. I mentioned very quickly, and I will happily have questions over a coffee around what we're doing around AI data steward. We don't have an army of people doing data steward type roles. I wish we did. That would be super easy to automate as well. Again, AI is a bit of an opportunity to leapfrog some of that. So we're actually building governance capabilities within some of our AI models. So I think someone mentioned it earlier already, how can we actually generate data quality rules, automate it, next best actions, using signals to leapfrog some of this to get to the endpoint quicker. And then I've started touching on agentic stuff there, right? So I've moved quite quickly beyond the generative AI into agentic opportunities. I'm talking about signals, I'm talking about next best actions. And what Sanya was going to cover is how are we evolving some of these kind of AI frameworks now that we have quite a different proposition. You do actually have to think about some of this stuff a little bit differently when you start to edge into that agentic world. What doesn't change, of course, is that data is still a key focus. It's the speed and the trust that you need to have to actually rely on these signals becomes even more important. And actually something that we're finding is you can have wonderful models that generate, that use all this rich data that we've got already, and we generate other data, and it creates these signals and it prompts a next best action. But the human is never going to take that next best action if they don't trust the data, if they don't understand where it's come from, if they don't ultimately know a little bit. And actually, you kind of don't want them to. You want them to have that curiosity to challenge. What better place to talk about some of the frameworks than in the room where the people who are that developed them. Frameworks are our friend, I would say. They carry weight. So we like frameworks because they give us a defendable approach, and it's something to build. We're talking about foundations, right? We can build some of the stuff we're doing and the way we're thinking on some of the industry frameworks as well. So hopefully, I'm not breaking news here. DCAM is an excellent data management framework. Well, I'm going to flip through these slides really quickly to show you kind of how it evolves into AI maybe as well. So from DCAM, we have CDMC, which is an adaptation for cloud. And then this slide will blow your mind. And don't worry, I'm not going to go through it. But you are going to hear more later because Ollie's taking the stage. So ADAC is, again, a kind of a growth of some of these frameworks and industry models, which specifically thinks about AI and controls, which I think is really useful. Because I think frameworks are, you can't live and die by a framework. You have to apply your organizational reality. You have to make it work and adapt it, et cetera, and join a few up and all the rest of it. ADAC gives actual prompts and things to think about. So it's quite directive in the sense that it's not just a framework, it kind of makes you think in a certain way. And then just to wrap up with some specifics. So some of these are hard fought, hard learnt, but one of the things that I talk a lot about internally is this concept of non-invasive governance. And what that really means is shifting all these things that we do to govern our data and manage our data to be automated and within processes, within transformation. So some really simple things like we've introduced group delivery disciplines, and one of those is a data discipline, which means anytime anyone does any kind of transformation, like any kind of CapEx spending, for instance, they have to think about data. And there's trigger questions and it prompts them down certain paths. But that means that it isn't this kind of add-on process, or at least it's added on early in the process. Obviously, you want it truly built in. So data management by design, records management by design, all of these are very much hot topics for us as well. Embedding the controls where the work actually happens, I think is really important. We've tried so many times, and I'm not even talking about LSEG here, but over my career, I've seen add-ons. Data is always an add-on. It's always kind of like a little bit of a checklist on the side, or you're just kind of like, oh, did I think about the right things? Bedding it in and actually controlling it earlier. So we've actually just kind of changed our control structure at LSEG. So we don't have this kind of like big group-wide data controls in the same way that we used to. Obviously, we still have the oversight and enterprise, enterprise views, but actually trying to make the control owners step up and think about controls in a different way, I think works better because it puts more skin in the game where there is the risk. Just a few other things to pull out. So measuring success by the friction removed. Again, quite a big mindset shift. I'm in data governance, right? We love metrics and controls, and it's so easy to measure policy things, like how many data owners have you got, how many data quality rules have you got. Nice, you can have some lovely dashboards. But making that jump to actually the so what, measuring the so what, is actually quite difficult. We're trying, we've tried lots of different ways, and we're there for some of it, but not, we continue to evolve on that as well. And I think sometimes a bit easier with AI because it's a bit more apparent. When it goes wrong, it really goes wrong. Sanya was going to cover number 7, which is interesting. So what have you already got? We have been able to leverage more than we thought we would. When we start to think about AI risk, we've been able to leverage our existing policies and frameworks and controls. Not completely, like we've obviously added some other perspectives, etc. But you don't necessarily need to rip everything up and start again. Like I say, more than happy to take any questions later on, and I know that we're on a panel now. Go that way.
So we're going to have a quick chat. Emma's going to be in. Aga, we're going to invite you back up on stage. So I'll let you guys take center stage. Here we go. All right. This is going to be a lightning round discussion because I think we only have about 10 minutes for this. So, and by the way, Carol, thank you for always starting the clock at 9 minutes instead of 10, so it speeds us up. So thank you for that. Emma, I want to start with you. So you spoke about frameworks. You spoke about building trust. I sense a sense of culture there. Could you elaborate a little bit? How did you create the culture of trust within LSEG?
I mean, it's one of those things. It's so easy to say, isn't it? But it takes years and years and years, and we're very much still on that journey. I have to say, when I can kind of compare and contrast other places that I've worked, LSEG is a data company, so it's the understanding of data, the foundations are there. People understand like data is our product, and some of those kind of starting points and the rhetoric that you have to sell at other companies are slightly different. But you know, knowing where your data comes from, who has it, is it fit for purpose, like the trust kind of elements is one thing. But actually, I think what we've been doing recently is taking a bit more of a step back even and thinking about beyond data, so people, process, technology, data, like how they all come together. Because what's quite interesting is data is always blamed. When something goes wrong, it's a data issue, right? And we've got a program which is starting to think about where are our true strategic data issues. And really interesting, what we're finding is, you know what, data's often not the cause. It's always the people, the process, technology. So it's a bit of a kind of a mindset shift, but it does also kind of change the dial on the conversation around culture a little bit as well. It's more all-encompassing.
That's how the Chief Data Officer was created, right? To find somebody to blame when things go wrong.
Yeah, hi.
So again, from a cultural perspective, I know from my own experience as a Chief Data Officer, and there was a little bit of that finger pointing, but the culture has to be spread through everybody, right? Everybody impacts how you drive that. So it's not a technical issue anymore, right? Like you say, it's also business process.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things because I mean, it's so tempting to say data's everybody's business, and I'm pretty sure I've got some quotes out there and everything. Well, I probably have said that many times, yeah. But it's a bit more nuanced than that because of course everybody has to care. But it's different roles have to care in different ways and do different things. And then collectively that kind of comes together to build that culture.
A great setup to my next question, Aga. We've heard data trust from a data management perspective, right? In governance and quality and so forth. But I don't know if in your introduction, Aga is also an attorney. So you bring that perspective, right, as well as your data management expertise. So what do you, trust more than just data governance? What else is involved?
I think, yes, trust today relies on processes and people. And I think part of it is relationships, reputation, people that you can talk to. And it comes from the context around the data. Whereas I think that what we have to look is how to create trust that is structured into the asset itself. So it doesn't require that contextual background. And I think that structuring trust into the data is where the legal frameworks come in, because when you create the ownership, you also create accountability. You have a named person that attaches to that asset, that is attached to the asset, that is held liable and responsible for what happens with the asset.
So, in fact, I was going to ask. So there's reputational issues there, right? But there's also, I guess, what I'm hearing you say is kind of the legal use of that data and whether it's used ethically or not.
Yes. So especially in the era of AI. The consumer of data is actually the machine today, not so much the other humans. So, and machines don't have ethical judgment. They don't understand trust. They don't know what it means, and they can't see the context, the relation, the reputation, etc. So I think what we need to shift from that context into structuring into the asset. So the meaning has to come with the asset, that the governance wrapper that explain the provenance, the rights, the terms, the permissions, the purpose of that asset needs to travel together with the asset itself.
So
I would say some of the things that we're doing, things like data passporting, actually kind of classifying, tagging data in certain different ways, like medallion scoring for our authorized sources, all of these things which are, metadata, which are AI readable, which allows that. You have to give it the guardrails, give it the context, and I think just those are a few of the kind of practical things.
But you have a little bit of a science fiction view. So the human's completely out of the loop now. Data's only for the machine. Is that?
No, I think human is in the loop, but I think it's the governance in the loop. That's the human roles. It's that ethical judgment that it provides. So it creates the framework and mandates the rules into the asset so that the judgment stays with the human. Okay. But I think if we look at the scale and the pure volume, the human cannot be in the loop all the time. We need to provide the infrastructure, the legal infrastructure, as well as technology, etc., to allow the human to create that mandate.
So my early experience as a chief data officer, the biggest tool we had back 20 years ago was Excel, right? And I had a team of people who could look at the 100 exceptions that got created. Now we're talking about thousands and tens of thousands of millions. So we need AI for data management, not just data for AI, but now we need AI for data. And that brings into the topic of creating these AI agents, but you just pointed out they don't have a way of determining ethics. So how do we build to maintain culture, to maintain the human in the loop, but to have these AI agents running around making ethical decisions? What's the view there?
So the agent can enforce the ethics, but it cannot originate the ethics. The agent cannot originate the ethics. So the ethics come from the human, but we need to find a way to embed it into the asset.
Any luck at doing that?
I think model risk the validation piece is really important. And that's why we've taken such a structured approach. So you can build on what you know, what does good look like, how does it work, but then how do you actually test that and unpick it? And if you can't, then then you don't go with it.
So as I said, this is going to be a short kind of discussion, but I have one more question to ask, is accountability. While MEU was speaking, I got a email that someone wrote a paper that said, "The chief data officer is dead, long live the AI officer." Do we think that's the case? I mean, isn't the chief data officer still accountable for this stuff?
I think ultimately, but we're with a helping hand from an AI friend. Absolutely. Like, I think it's allowing us to do things quicker and leapfrog. And like now I can look really quickly at all of our incidents and work out, okay, what are my 5 strategic data issues? What am I really focusing on? Where do I need to invest my capital? That's not 6 months anymore. So I'm still there, but I'm more effective.
Yeah. And I think I see more and more a legal tone over data because of its impact, its liability, right? Or a negative impact if it's used. So that seems to me a growing discipline is implementing the legal perspective around the use of data.
Absolutely, and the analogy I always reach for is the land registry. So that legal architecture is what turned the land from something you fought over into something you could mortgage, insure, and trade. So that creating the formal recognition of something creates also accountability and enforceability around it. And I think we're not here to replace the private sector. We're here to create the outer layer that allows everyone to function under the same rules and have the same understanding and share meaning of what data asset is and what accountability comes with it.
Well, unfortunately, this is a quickie. So 2 brilliant colleagues here. Thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next one. All right, let me bring our next panel up. Unlocking the gold, since we're talking about gold. And I think we have Mr. Rob Wentz. Where is he? Ah, there he is. So, Rob, I'll turn the panel over to you.
Thanks, John.
Do you need the clicker, or you're done?
No, you can click it once.
There you go. Oh, I forgot to mention the people in the line.
Good afternoon, everybody. So, we were told that we had 3 hours. Now we're down to something significantly less. But we're going to dive into some of the areas which are going beyond just the AI and beyond just the data. So you've obviously heard the basic topic of data product. In order to get to the second topic that we're going to talk about around AI optimization, we have to ground everybody a little bit as to what is a data product, what are these structures that are going to allow you to optimize the AI. So that's where we're going to start today, is really in that foundation of what is a data product. Is one thing I always like to ask people, is it just that thing that you had before and you slapped a new label on it, called it a data product? That's one way to look at it, and that wouldn't really work, right? So that's where we're really going to start, and I'm going to pose the first question I have to Ben. So what do we truly consider a data product? Again, is it something that existed in the past that we just slapped a new label on it? Or what truly would we describe that as? So I'm going to pose that to Ben, and then we'll have others jump in as appropriate.
Fantastic. So that is a thorny question. And I've been in many forums in the EDM Association where we debated this. And it's a little bit like the question, is it art? Which has raged on in the art world for many years as well, of course. And I think the best way of tackling that is to look at the characteristics of what makes something a data product. And we had some really interesting conversations in preparation for this. Yeah. So I'm going to be the first to say that this isn't entirely my work, and it might have been assisted with AI as well. So I came up with an acronym to remember it by, imported. So I think first of all, it needs to be with intentional. And so there's an idea of purpose. And actually, we talked about in some. This obviously builds on some of the incredible themes coming from Arga and folks talking earlier around data products. Intention of how it might be used, intention associated with what rights one should have associated with that, and what duties. The M should be machine readable, and of course. That was mentioned earlier, and of course, for it to truly be useful for agents and for AI, that's absolutely sort of non-negotiable. P, that it should be packaged in some way, so that it can be accessed and made available to organizations and individuals. And then O for owned. And I think that's an interesting topic in itself in terms of accountability that was mentioned just now. R, and this really matters, is the reusable aspect of it. Because coming back to art, if somebody painted a painting for you, would it be described as a product? Probably not if it's a one-off. But actually, if it was a run of prints, maybe it becomes a product in some way, in the way that we classify it as human beings. So that reusable aspect, you don't need to necessarily productize everything. And then, so in terms of the T, I will actually just have a quick check. It obviously wasn't as good an acronym, a mnemonic as I remember. Trusted, of course, and of course, how could I forget that? It's the theme of what we're talking about today. So. It has to be trusted. There has to be an understanding that you can rely on it in some way. And then finally, the D, because we're going to skip the E, is just to make the acronym work.
I'll give you the E when you're done.
Oh, good, Rob. Please, that would be fabulous. Is to deliver value. And it has to have some form of value intrinsic. And of course, that nicely goes back to the intention at the beginning. There's an intention that this could be used to be valuable to somebody or in some way.
So the only one I would add is the E would be educated. So people have to understand these are different. These aren't that, you don't go back to that, I put a new label on something that existed previously. This is something that's different. So people have to be educated. They have to understand how to consume them. They have to understand what they are. So there's a whole layer of education. And it's education that has to go across the broader audience. It's not just about the data people. Pablo?
I think I agree with most of those, but I think there's a distinction between a product and a good or bad product. So I think intention and packaging, for me, are like the properties of a product. The rest of it, so raise your hands if you've ever seen baked beans in the supermarket. Great. You ever seen candy floss flavored baked beans? No, because there's no demand for it. Like someone with intention thought, okay, we can have regular baked beans, we can maybe have barbecue or sausage or even curry flavored, but we are not going to have candy floss flavored baked beans because there is no market for it.
Right.
You could, and it is still a product, it's just a product that no one is going to use.
Correct.
And I think the same can hold true for data. You could productize a whole load of things. Whether or not it is a successful product, I guess, is a different set of criteria.
Correct.
And I think that point around intention, it's the intention to make something that is useful. Correct. And I think when we talk about data products, we are talking about the product part, and that implies product market fit. And a product market fit implies there is a market of supply and demand.
Yep. And I'll go back to what Emma said earlier. You look at DCAM, it's got to be driven by some sort of strategy, right?
100%.
So, and that's not a strategy just because we can create a data product. It's a strategy because it's supporting something that ideally the business wants or has. 100%. Now, one question, and Tina, you had a good example of a current situation that you have where can organizations be successful with AI without data products?
So I'm going to give you a yes and no answer. And I'm going to tell you a little story, and a story that some people have probably heard before. But so and this is completely the opposite of how you guys are probably going to talk about things, but I'm okay with that. So you go down to the beach with your parents, and your dad goes to the shop, and basically my dad always used to buy us a bucket and spade each, right? And we would build the sandcastle on the beach just to make him happy, because he would be like, you've got to build a sandcastle, you've got to build a sandcastle, quick, build the sandcastle. And then there'd be the kid on the beach that had brought his whole family down with him. They'd all gone and got buckets and spades, and they spent the whole day building this masterpiece, okay? All that effort, all of that time, and they'd gone back to the shop and they'd gone and bought a load of flags to put over it, and at the end of the day it looked like the Tower of London, right? So, and everyone's coming along and taking photos and going, oh, look at how brilliant you are, look at what you've built. And then the next day we'd go down to the beach, and of course the tide has washed the sandcastles away. And so my brother and I would then just go and build another product for my dad, and we'd build the sandcastle. But the kid would come down from the day before, and he'd be screaming, where's my sandcastle? Someone's destroyed it. And it's because there was no foundation there, and his dad would have to explain that the tide had come in, and this is what happens. And so I think you can apply the same logic, obviously, to data products. You know, data products need to have that foundation. They need to be trusted. They need to be scalable, they need to be reusable, they need to be valuable, all the things that we're saying. But equally, to Emma's point, I think you can use AI to help you with your data products. And a good example of that is if you are in the lucky position to have in production, I don't know, say 10 AI use cases, you could potentially use AI to then monitor those AI use cases. So does that need a trusted data product behind it? No. But does it need to monitor data, AI use cases that have got trusted data products behind it? Yes. So that's my short and long answer to the question is, I think in certain circumstances you can use AI without a data product, but I think at the end of the day, indirectly it will need trusted data products behind it, at least in 2026. So that was my rather long answer.
Okay, good. Well, and interestingly enough, so the next logical step, we talked about ownership. So when you look at the ownership model around data or data products, the question becomes, we're going to start using a product, or we're defining a product and we're going to start using it, or we're looking to use it. Who gets to make that call? So you think about all the actors involved in helping create a data product. Is it the original team that helped define the data product, the owner of the data, if you look at it that way? Is it us as the producer who physically created it from a data management standpoint or the technology standpoint? So, Nicole, I'd ask you, from that perspective, when is a data product ready, and who in that ownership model gets to make that decision that says we're ready to go do this?
It's a very loaded question, and the short answer is it's a collective responsibility. And let me answer it, let me just break it down now. To do that, let me first wear a consumer hat, like the data consumers. Now, here today we're talking about, AI as being one of the consumers, but that's the new baby in the room. We also have other kids who were born earlier, I would say reporting or regular, digital applications, machine learning, and each of them, has a different consumption pattern, if you were to think about it. Now, if, let's say all four of us are consumers and, each of us have different needs, then the definition of what data is required is going to change. The answer to this is, the call to action is, an enterprise should kind of have a larger strategy of how and what their use cases are. If you know what your use cases are, then you can start breaking down your use case into multiple consumption patterns, which will then define what your data strategy should be. And that is a really important thing to have for you as a data producer. And that's actually going to put you from, being reactive to being proactive. What I mean by that is, let's say, you are a producer and all four of us come with different requirements. You're just going to react to those. And you're going to build, what's ready. Or, in the matter of time, you're going to lose the long side. But if, as an organization, if you know, these are the things you need to build, as a producer, you will be much more prepared. Now, the other side of the coin, let me wear the producer hat. Now, if I'm a producer, a data producer, I need to think about meeting all these requirements. Now, again, it's not just the data product. A data product is a means to an end. I need to think of the whole stack over here from a producer standpoint. And I'll start from the top, which is the semantic layer. Now, again, I may be deviating from the topic. Semantic, again, like you said, is used variably in the industry. I could have people, create business views and call it semantic, thanks to Power BI. And also, in the new world, I would create an ontology on top of, my existing data estate and call it semantic ontology. And that is required for AI. So if I have to serve different people, I need to come up with different consumption patterns. But whatever powers the semantic underneath is a data product. Now, as a data product owner, I need to now think about what is the data architecture that goes behind it. How do I take structured data, unstructured data, pull it together? What is the data model behind it? I need to think about the platform architecture. I need to think about the capabilities in the platform architecture that can serve the needs. I need to think about the talent I need in my team. I'm going to think about the governance and the operating model which you spoke about. So it requires a lot of, the entire village to come together to clearly define, what is right and what's wrong.
I really like what you said about the demand stack and making that visible and explicit, or driving what the data producer does. It's the approach that we've taken at Schroders, and it's been transformative for us. There's a lot of hubris in taking any other approach. How many? Raise your hands if you've been around for the Hadoop days. Yeah. Or sort of the Teradata, sort of data warehouses. Now, I think throughout history of our sort of tortured data professional lives, we've always been supply side driven. Like, we'll build a thing and hope it hits, and throw the kitchen sink into the solution. And it's always done with very little view or resolution of what the demand stack is. Yeah. And invariably, those solutions become brittle because they're not built to meet an evolving demand stack. And when a new priority comes in, mostly, at best, you'll have it in Jira. And it's like, that's not a great place to articulate your data use cases. Making it explicit, I think, is what gives data product or data producers and data product owners life. That's your demand. It's in a supply-demand market. You want to see what's your demand book.
It's a fabulous point, and if you don't mind me riffing
No, go ahead.
that, I always think about the news and how the news is, in fact, a form of data product in some regards. And the business model around the news is fascinating. You can have a subscriber model in which people pay a subscription to be able to receive hopefully trusted journalism. But there's also advertising models as well, and in which there's less associated with upfront payment. When people are delivering that news, they're trying to maximize their audience in some way, of course, they're going to serialize it in different formats, be it electronic, RSS feeds. Does anybody remember those? Am I aging myself a little? But tabloid, and broadsheet, all of these different formats that enable people to be able to consume that and contribute. So that's an incentivized structure that brings the consumers and the producers together to understand how best to deliver those products.
And just
Go ahead.
Actually, a couple of good points made, like both Pablo and Ben. And what I'll add is, usually, in my consulting life, I keep meeting, too many clients on the same topic every day, every week. Now, problem, I would always see at my client is either they have taken a tech-first approach where, to your point, you want to build everything and it takes you a couple of years to actually build. It's not going to change, and that's still the fact. And by the time you're built, your consumers are gone, they're moved away. The other part of the story is we take, a POC-based approach, and there are multiple POCs across the board happening. And you have lost control of, what you have built, and you've built, multiple duplicate pipelines. And I call that the spaghetti architecture, because you have wires going all over and there's data duplicated across.
What do you call them?
Production.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that word. I'll use it with your permission.
Go for it.
So the idea here is to come up, with a lighthouse approach. It's neither. Neither is right. You need to be balanced, and you need to be somewhere in the middle. You need to think about, as I started saying, from an organization, if I do have, a view into what I need to build, what are my use cases, I can then start picking, the lighthouse use cases and start building my data estate in slices. I would still need to build, everything that I said earlier, from data architecture to platform architecture. But every time I build something, I'm delivering something to a client, and it's incremental.
That's product thinking, and I think that it's not something that comes naturally to us as data professionals.
No.
It's a whole new muscle that you're learning to exercise.
Yeah, we have to play a different role.
Yeah,
the facilitation that we normally do is changing, right? So I think, and now stepping from that definition of the data product and that consumption, the next question then is this whole concept of AI, and you hear people say AI readiness, right? The newest spin on it is AI optimization. So when we start to look at those two, people can be ready where they believe they're ready for AI, but there's a difference between ready for AI and optimization of AI. So I guess looking at that from that perspective, not a lot of organizations can optimize. There's a lot of organizations that can be ready, but they are not optimizing. So when we take a look at that, what is optimization from our perspective? And I'll look at you, Ben, for the initial response. What does optimization look like compared to that readiness relative to the data?
This is a fantastic question, and optimization, I think, is the right mindset to have. I think readiness is fine, but I mean, AI is upon us, and if it's a bit late to be thinking about readiness. To me, optimization suggests an understanding of how the data product should be utilized. And that comes back to intention, and then feedback associated with how one then understands how well it's fulfilling that purpose, and then adjusting it accordingly. And for most organizations, I would say going back to the machine readable bit, the M, metadata structured across correct standards and things. And there are some really amazing standards. One of them was up there on John's talk around the OMG, the DPROD standard. Which Ollie and many others sort of helped sponsor and contribute to. I did a very small contribution to that, but I was lucky enough to have my name associated with it. It's a really powerful open standard for metadata to describe a data product. It also really complements a rather unusual named standard that Jim Holcomb made me aware of from the ODI called Croissant. So it's worth looking at Croissant, and there is even a Croissant Baker module that helps you add metadata to your products. It's well worth seeing that they're actually very complementary. So to optimize, I think it is about semantics, ontologies, the right metadata serialized in the right way for the purpose, and then seeing how that's landing in terms of accuracy and use.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm delighted as a self-professed metadata maximalist to hear you saying metadata, because I 100% metadata all the way. And to the point that you could articulate your metadata capabilities in terms of the gains you get in your AI optimization. Like, I'm assuming that we're all still on the buffet plan for our AI use and not on the meter yet. How many of you are getting charged per token at this point? Right, okay, yeah, so enjoy it. Well, there you go. For the rest of you, enjoy it while it lasts, because you're going to learn the hard way how much the lack of metadata costs. And I think that's something that you can really measure in terms of your capability. So what is optimization? Reducing your token burn. And the difference between reading, or your agents reading structured metadata or running queries over it as opposed to reading a text corpus is like an order of magnitude less. That's where the gains are.
I completely. Oh, sorry, please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and I've actually written a piece on LinkedIn about tokenization and how you need to look at how you optimize your AI to reduce down your token costs, essentially. And I think some of that, you can actually use regulation to help you to do some of that as well. So don't forget, when you're building AI use cases, especially if you're going to use them externally, they do need to comply with the EU AI Act, especially where we are in Europe and UK. And I actually think legislation can actually help you with some of that optimization and reusability of the AI use case. Sorry, my voice keeps going.
So I'll just. The conversation reminded me of a talk I was having with a client. One of my clients actually asked me, like, why do I need data products when I have AI and I can let it loose on my data estate and it'll come back magically with answers? True question.
Who's heard that? I mean, I must have heard that quite a few times.
I've heard stuff like that. Wait till you see the bill, my friend.
Yeah, it's like letting a monkey loose in a room full of bananas. Honestly. And that's where the token cost goes up. Now, and like if you let AI loose on a data estate, it's just going to go crazy. Forget the token cost. Your chances of hallucination are a lot higher because if your same data domain exists in multiple sources and the definition is not clear, it's going to come back with different answers where it goes to. Now, this is where, like optimization comes into play, where the semantic ontology is a new approach, which I believe the industry is running towards. Like ontology last year was just a concept. In the last 6 months, I've just seen a spike in, like the number of conversations I'm having on ontologies, and also our vendors, or, the hyperscalers and the providers are coming up with, like solutions in that space. Like ontology is not a new topic. It's always existed for like 20, 30 years, but it never gained traction because it required a lot of human skill, and it was a very painful thing to maintain and keep it alive.
I think for a lot of us, we're still learning, I think, as an industry, where that's become relevant and where it bites. As, and I guess for those not less familiar with, say, ontologies, it's just qualifying things. I remember many moons ago, I got pulled into an office with a very angry-looking commodities trader and a very worried-looking risk officer, and there were limits blowing up on credit limits blowing up on their books, so they couldn't trade. Several weeks later, worked out that what we were calling mark-to-market in the credit engine was not what we were getting from the source system called mark-to-market, which actually what we needed was, we had different definitions. What we needed was economic P&L. That's where it bites. And there's hundreds, if not thousands, of little landmines dotted around each of your respective organizations, from semantic landmines, which you can't flush out. And now that happens at the speed of a training run, and you're going to have your agent say, great catch, after something's blown up. So,
oh, I love that. And well, it comes back to obviously really good data management, understanding what everything means, agreeing associated with this. You can't really defer that to AI. And a little plug for the AI forum at the EDM Association that I help run. We were looking at optimization of recruitment. And we've got some really brilliant recruiters in the audience here today, by the way. So this is more of a reflection on the bulk recruitment type of optimization that's going on. People are optimizing each step in the process associated with recruitment. Really, all you have to do is hire the right person for the right role. You don't need thousands of applicants. You just need to find the right person to do the right role. And the really skilled recruiters have always been good at this. What we're seeing is AI being used to write a job spec, AI being used to push it out onto various different platforms in front of tons of people with a whole bunch of metadata, generic metadata that it's made up. Then thousands and thousands of people applying using AI with false cover letters, tailored resumes that don't actually add up to their real experience, etc. People are going, well, look how many people applied. Yeah, well, how many were useful? So then they use AI to optimize the step, to filter them all out, to try and get back to the whole thing. Because we're not thinking intentionally end to end, and we've not got, in fact, an ontology, a semantic understanding of what success looks like, we've optimized for these bizarre metrics all the way along. And so it is that optimization feedback loop where you go, well, what are we trying to achieve, and how can the data be structured in the right way?
I was just going to say, just a little nugget there. It's quite funny you talked about how many people applied for job roles. So not someone that I'm connected to on LinkedIn, but I saw on, for some reason it came up, and it said this guy was really complaining and saying, oh, you know, all the applicants I've had have used AI to write their cover letters. And then everyone came back and said, well, why are you even asking someone to write a cover letter? Of course they're going to use AI, right? So because what's the point of a cover letter these days? So it's just interesting, because then and then there's this back and forwards. And then he actually then admitted he'd used AI to read the cover letters that had been written by AI. So yeah.
The people selling tokens and energy are the only people winning out of that equation, right?
Yeah. Just to wrap the conversation here, talking of optimization, Fiber model itself was built on, ontology. And it was done even before. Now, at one of the clients where we were designing things ground up, what we did was we took the Fiber model as a standard. It was a standard, but then, underneath the data was structured. So when we designed the models, the data models for the data domains, we kept it aligned with Fiber. The advantage we get is, today they're building the domains and the products, but tomorrow when these things are built out, to put an ontology will be pretty easy, because the data models are aligned to my ontology. Yes. All I need to do is a binding, and binding is, tying your ontology back to your actual tables underneath. It should be, you can start thinking about it, constructively this way.
You think about it differently. It's interesting because you talked in the discussion of the HR and the recruitment. I have a daughter who's a high school AP bio teacher, and you would be amazed the amount of activity that students today are spending trying to get AI to do something that if they would just use their brain, they would probably finish a lot faster. So that's what I find. But going back, and I think, Ben, you mentioned it in your last statement, is this feedback loop, right? So there's an ownership model We talked a little bit about that. Who owns the data product? Who owns the AI, right? Obviously, these have to go hand in hand in strategies and all that sort of stuff. Who owns the outcome? What have any of you seen in, out there in the real world? Who owns that AI outcome, and what does that process look like within organizations?
Wow.
I don't know that there may not be a good answer right now.
Can I make an assertion here? Because it does relate to the question of human in the loop, which I know is slightly off topic, but I think is pertinent here. Business process owners, and ultimately your accountable executive. For everyone in this room, we do work on behalf of somebody in order to secure business process outcomes. There are MDs at various companies who are accountable for those business process outcomes. They own functions. Those functions are either front office, middle office, or back office. Those are arguably the accountable executives, and they own the outcomes however they are done, whether it's offshored, whether it's nearshored, whether you have humans or you have machines do it. So in your case, for example, the recruitment process, there is someone who is accountable for that recruitment process and its success, right? Yeah. And it's quite easy to reconcile it to your chief HR officer.
Did we find the right person? That's a fabulous point. I'm intrigued associated with this ownership thing because, of course, there are different tools that are being used in this equation that are owned by different people. So the intelligence can be owned by the frontier models, etc., and the data may be owned in the way that we were describing earlier, and the insights and the outcomes, to Pablo's point around business process. What's really interesting is how sovereignty of this is either empowered or given away, depending on whether you actually own your own ontologies, own your own data. And we're seeing in the SaaS market a sort of a consolidation. There's some fabulous talks about this, of people trying to effectively take other people's data and other people's insights and other people's intelligence, and they now can replicate your business pretty easily. So sovereignty, I think, is going to become a really important thing, and data products themselves and the ontologies are a way of keeping that sovereignty within your organization. You don't want to give that away to disreputable companies that will write an ontology for you that never show you it. So own your own insights and your data and your semantics.
I was going to say, but you could also make your product cyclical. So you could say, as a business process owner, I own the process, but I don't necessarily own the data output from that. But ultimately, the data product output is of value to me as a business process owner. So you could make it a cyclical arrangement. Yes, you might not actually own the data in it, but the data's driving your value and your outcomes from it. So yeah.
It's an approach that we take at Schroders, and I think it's become effective in rationalizing our data product estate to say, when we talk about data use cases, they get anchored to business processes. So we know why they exist, and we know what blows up if that product goes down, or what fit for purpose looks like it needs to work for that data, so that business process and that business process owner who says, or. Yeah, that's a really good point.
So when I think of AI outcomes, three things come to my mind. Three because I'm a consultant.
We've all been there.
Yes. Okay, I'll try to make it two this time. I'll go for two. Okay, two. Number one is, the strategy, the AI strategy that a company comes up with. Again, if I go with real numbers, it is about 7% of the companies that have been able to successfully scale AI. And that number is out in the market. Rest are all, playing around with it. And can anyone say, why is that number so low? If not, I'll answer this. It is because, they don't have a complete, a broad scale AI strategy. See, to think about for your AI to be successful, you need to look at your entire end-to-end process. How can you automate the process using AI? It's not like one-off POCs that you're going to do here and there. If you're going to do that, you're not going to get the benefits of AI. Data comes much later in the game. You need to get that first. That's my first piece. and sticking to 2. The second is, I'll come up with a second number. Like McKinsey actually ran a survey to figure out, why or what are the problems that the chief analytics officer, as someone rightly said, is seeing as a hindrance to them. And 2/3 of them said data. Now, why is that? Why is 2/3 saying data? The reason is, as I was saying earlier, you can open up AI to your entire data estate, but at the end of the day, you need good quality data, no matter if you're taking it from a data product or you're going to take it directly from the source. The quality of that data needs to be clean. And again, the understanding and the definition of that, if I'm taking a customer, what is a customer needs to be clear. That's where,
right.
You can't have multiple definitions of customer and then, let AI figure out what the right answer is. So these are, having that definition set in place, that becomes a part of, the data owner's journey. And the fact that, another myth I've heard is, AI can magically solve data quality issues. The answer is no. It's a methodic approach. What you actually started the conversation with, Pablo, human in the loop. It requires precision. It requires a surgical approach. You need to know, what is data quality really mean? What are the quality parameters I'm going after? And for what kind of data? A quality parameter I might apply for a certain domain may not apply to the other domain.
Right.
But I would also say don't get hung up on just data quality as part of your data product. So yes, because you need your data product to be trusted, and I think data quality is a big part of that, but the whole thing around ownership, accountability, traceability is also there, and that's also another regulatory requirement, right? So I've seen companies that really focus in on data quality and don't really think about anything else. That doesn't mean that data product or that data asset is fit for purpose for your AI, because it's got so much else missing. So, so whilst I agree, I'd just say don't just focus in on one area of data management. Think about all of it.
Yeah.
And to riff on your earlier point, Nikhil, and Tina's point just then, is to optimize for AI. And I know that Ollie and Tony would approve. I mean, it's worth remembering that 50 to 51% of all web pages contain JSON LD, which is a form of RDF that is semantically sound, and therefore, as it's the major source by which most of the frontier models have been trained, they're very, very comfortable using ontologies and using RDF as a primary language. So if we're optimizing our data sets, we should be thinking in terms of RDF-based ontologies, which of course the EDM Association massively promotes for all the right reasons.
Yeah, if you're going technical into RDF, so I'll make one more point on that. Again, LPG versus RDF. RDF is more powerful. I completely agree with you, because it's just not the relationships that I define. I also define the meaning behind it.
Right.
Because with RDF, I can also embed governance. I can embed, what is the provenance that's needed? What is, the quality rules that are needed can all be embedded within that RDF. So if I'm defining, a particular node in that RDF, I can go super deep and say, what are the attributes of the node? What are the quality rules in the node? Everything embedded there. And that, if I use to build my data products, it's like a hybrid architecture. It's a win-win.
So in the last 30 seconds, which is actually pretty good, we made it. You answered my last question, which was, where do we usually see the problems when you have a failed AI? And what I'm hearing from the panel is 9 times out of 10, it's in the data somewhere. It's not necessarily the AI model itself, it's what's being fed into the model, which is causing some of the challenges that they have. I think the other point being made is ontologies, the metadata, as much information as we can collect. I always like to look at AI as, people say, oh, you just feed unstructured data into AI. Well, what's the AI doing? It's structuring the data. So the more we can structure that data, the better off that we're going to be with the results that will come out. So I just want to thank everybody for your time today. Good discussion. Appreciate it.
I'm not going to let you escape. I do have to ask one question. What we heard about the Isle of Man and the way to put value on data, can you envision data products being treated as value assets? So a lot of follow-up discussions there. Thank you very much, panel. Excellent. All right, we have one more panel before the break. And what's going to be interesting in this panel, of course, is this is some exposure to the augmented reality. And there's going to be some sample devices on the break. So I'll let you take it away.
Thank you very much.
Do you have a slide? There you go.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name. Oh, let's just go there. My name is Mark Sage. I'm the Executive Director of the area. Just before I start, I'm going to give a quick introduction or overview of OMG, the Digital Twin Consortium in the area. But I've been lucky enough to speak all around the world on augmented reality. Normally in a T-shirt, in a jacket, pair of jeans and red trainers with the rest of the cool people. I was told that everybody would have a shirt and a tie on today. John, it's just you and me. Never again. Okay, so I've got some real experts here in digital twin and augmented reality, but what we're going to do first is just give you a quick overview. John's already mentioned that. We were 4 organizations, but now we're 1, and we are definitely 1. And we have one goal. We are helping the industry adopt technology with less risks. OMG are focusing on the standards. The Digital Twin Consortium helps organizations build and deploy digital twins. And the area helps enterprise augmented reality deployed safely, effectively, and at scale. So together, we're really reducing uncertainty and accelerating adoption. Let's talk a little bit about OMG. We'll do this real quick, but every industry depends on organizations working together. That's obvious, and we know that. But standards create that common language between companies, software, and data. And that's really, really important. OMG has developed over 250 international standards over 35 years, many of them recognized by ISO. What do standards do? Well, they reduce integration costs, improve interoperability, and increase trust. And that is really, really important. So innovation moves faster when everybody speaks the same language. Why does OMG matter? Well, every industry depends. Sorry, let me just go on. The business value. So it reduces technology risk, it improves data quality and consistency, which is something we've been talking a lot here. Makes it easier to replace suppliers when rebuilding everything. Allows organizations to adopt new technology with greater confidence. And this is something we're seeing a lot with AI, being able to bring new technology in. And good standards protect today's investments while enabling tomorrow's innovation. You may not have heard about OMG, but it's been around in many different industries. We've already mentioned a few: defense, space, financial institutes, automotive. And really, it's all about that foundation of trust, something we've heard quite a bit about today. Digital transformation, something we would talk a little bit about, depends on trust, okay? And trust information leads to better decisions. One of the other interesting things we do with the OMG and the EDMA is this Journal of Innovation. So it creates value when knowledge is shared. It brings together practical insights. It's peer-reviewed. This is a great way to get some of your information out there and really help the ecosystem. So if you have a chance, come and speak to one of the EDMA team, and we can get this Journal of Innovation really going. Digital twins, really important. It's basically a virtual representation of real-world assets, systems, and processes. You can see that from on the slide. So we're going to talk a little bit about that more in detail and the amazing work that the Digital Twin Consortium is doing. And then finally, my bag, the area. Augmented Reality Enterprise Alliance, as you can read, it's a global membership-funded, not-for-profit alliance, really helping acceleration. I'm not going to go into too much on this, but please come and see me at a table out there. You can try out some AR devices, wearables, VR devices as well. But there's a lot actually happening. We have members all across the world doing all sorts of things, some of the biggest companies that you know in the world. We're developing thought leadership, networking, education, and reducing barriers to adoption. And there's a whole bunch of content and information, which you may not think is relevant to you, but it is. Okay, as part of that financial bit, and you can come and see some financial examples of AR working a bit later on. Just to give you an example, as I go down and have a seat there, this is one of the demos that you can see, and just think from a data and AI perspective what you're able to do with some of this stuff. Okay, I think I might have to go back, so I'm going to flick all the way back so you can have some faces to remind you of who we are. Here we go. Right, let's ask some questions of these educated, knowledgeable people. Sean, right, let's start with you, okay? Let's just get my questions so I can remember them. Obviously, introduce yourself, please, your experience in digital twins, and explain how work connects data, AI, and the creation of digital twins.
Absolutely. Well, hello, it's lovely to be here. My name is Sian Purver. I'm Chief Operating Officer at CRISP, but I also wear another hat. I am part of the Digital Twin Consortium, and I do chair the Sustainability Working Group. Now, that's sustainability in two terms, both environmental and about creating longevity in building digital twins. I've been part of the consortium for 3 years now, and I'm very lucky to get to work with my CTO very closely, who chairs up the Digital Engineering Working Group, and he was also the lead author on the global definition of digital twins as well. Now, at a simplest level, digital twins, we are using the metaphor of a pyramid or an iceberg. Now, you know, we've talked a lot about data today, and it really is building that whole thing on the structured data with the digital, or what may be referred to as the golden thread on top, and then the application and automation that sits on top of that. What we often see is people jumping a little bit too far ahead, or getting giddy, as I like to say, and wanting to dive into that end product, looking at the big picture, and really, you know, we've got to start at that foundation. We've got to get the structured data right first and foremost. Now, CRISP, a little bit of an odd name. I know, unfortunately, it doesn't involve salt and vinegar or cheese and onion, but we're relatively unique in the digital twin world. We don't build digital twins, I don't pretend to be, nor do I ever want to. What we actually do is enable them. We sit as the structured foundation for digital twins, so we can actually build with the other organisations around us, build those digital twins, and give that trust. You know, it keeps coming up, but that is what it is, because otherwise, it's just a virtual representation of what? You've got to have the real core golden thread that sits underneath. So really it is that people, the process, and the place.
Awesome. And I'm sure not everybody is a digital twin expert here. In fact, probably very few. So again, just talk a little bit more in practical terms of what a digital twin is and how it can help these people, and what the main benefits an organisation can get from creating one.
Absolutely. So as John alluded to earlier, a digital twin, it really is a living model that is synchronised with the real world. Now, if you have never looked into the world of digital twins, or you might have heard it in passing, my favourite example of a digital twin is Google Maps. Hopefully everyone in here has heard of or used Google Maps. So that is a virtual representation of the real world. It's synchronised, real time. If you're driving somewhere, it's going to pop up. It's going to tell you if there's traffic. It's going to tell you which route you should probably take instead. So you actually use them a lot more than you think in day-to-day life. Now, the benefit of them, there's a whole host of different reasons to use them. Really, it gives you the opportunity to have real-time insights, make decisions, and actually actuate them as well, often saving time, resource, and most importantly, money.
And talking about financial services real quick, you know, a couple of things I think about, and maybe bounce both off you, kind of looking at better operational resilience, using a digital twin, kind of risk modelling. I'm sure that's what they actually use now. Probably a load of experts could tell us a bit more about it. Asset management, investment decisions based on kind of live operational data. There's so many things that you could use a digital twin, and probably are within the financial services. Have you seen kind of any examples or?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think the asset management is one that we touch upon quite a lot. That end of life expectancy, budget planning, things in warranty. You know, people often do a little bit of guesswork, or have done historically. We're actually seeing a change in the tide with that. Better decisions, better foreplanning, better resource. That's really the most heavily commonly reason that we're seeing it used.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about the Digital Twin Consortium, and you've been heavily involved. Can you talk a little bit about how it's helped your work? Maybe some of the practical kind of things that you've got out, the collaboration, best practice. It's important to kind of understand what the benefits are for an organisation like the DTC?
Absolutely. Now, one of the initiatives of the DTC is the testbed programme. So currently within the DTC, there are 24 testbeds going on. What the testbed programme allows is for organisations to collaborate with other organisations in the consortium at a low or often no cost trial. Almost like a mad scientist's dream. So people get to play around, they get to use other companies' technology, there is protected IP in that sense, and they get to see if their ideas actually have commercial value behind them. CRISP are currently involved in 21 out of the 24, again, being that golden thread of data and information on that layer. Off the back of it, the quickest testbed to actually commercialisation was 3 months from idea to execution. And, you know, they don't all work, and that's absolutely fine, and that's part of the benefit as well, is you get to work with some of the global leaders for digital twins, use their brains, options that you may not normally have had. And then if it flops, it flops. And that's absolutely fine, and we also get many, many learning out of that as well. You know, people from all corners of the world. It's normally a very heated discussion, but with an absolutely wonderful outcome at the end, and everyone walks away laughing and with much more knowledge.
Like you said, every failure is an actually learning opportunity, isn't it? Stuff
yes.
Like that. And I'm hoping there's people here that might say, well, actually, it would be interesting in doing a digital twin. The testbed would be a good place to go, wouldn't it?
The perfect place.
Yeah, yeah,
come and try it before you buy it.
Yeah, yeah. All you mad scientists out there, which I'm sure there's a few as well. So awesome. Well, maybe we'll come back, Sean, with kind of some questions afterwards. But let's jump on to the augmented reality world. So great pleasure to introduce a friend of mine. And just before I kind of blow him up a little bit, this guy's actually built a department in an organization he's going to explain from scratch and created it as a profit unit rather than a cost unit as well. So Miguel, maybe you can introduce yourself, talk about your role at CBRE and how kind of extended reality is supporting frontline workers and driving transformation in facilities management.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. Hopefully everyone can hear me. So yeah, my name is Miquel Vidal. I'm the global head of XRS, Extended Reality Solution. I guess someone had to have a fancy job title. So that was me. So yeah, most of you probably know CBRE, being very financials driven this, you know, a 36 billion revenue company, 120,000 people. We are across 100 countries, 500 offices, and some of you probably are our customers, or vice versa. So, but I'm representing here XRS, so please don't come back to me with complaints. Hopefully only positive feedback only, please. So yeah, XRS started almost 8 years ago. 8 years ago, my background as an electronics engineer, being very much in robotics in the pharma industry. I had a bit of a eureka moment when I used to travel the world, fixing, repairing robotic systems. And then I come across with Microsoft HoloLens 1, a mixed reality device back in 2014-16. That was my eureka moment. That is what actually showed me how we all, you probably don't know yet, but you will, all gonna be consuming, interacting with digital content on a completely different platform. We're gonna go from, probably I'm jumping my questions now. But we're gonna go from a key desktops and monitors to a whole physical environment through augmented reality, holograms. I know it sounds a bit Iron Man stuff, and it is, but I've been lucky enough to work for that kind of Iron Man stuff for the last 9 years. And so in the real world, how we use this in our CBRE world, so CBRE's got over 25,000 techs all over the world, and increasing another 20 or 30 in the next few years just on data centers, where we help folks like you to look after these facilities, to do the repair, to do the maintenance. Also, we are biggest in data centers, we are biggest on life science, providing support, as I said, for our customers to look after the campuses, the building, the site. So our frontline workers, those are technicians, engineers, auditors, project managers, fixing, repairing, using their hands to fix things. And how that translates to the extended reality, to data, to where we are now. So today, we do have technicians of all ages, you wearing glasses, assisted reality glasses or augmented reality glasses, to help them to become more proactive, to repair instruments, to repair assets, to be able to create the work orders to the CMS system. And it's all done through glasses, hands-free, heads up, so they'll be able to operate what you do on a mobile phone to a certain degree through the glasses. And that is what our main focus is, and we do this. And what we use it for, sorry, Mark, is to allow our frontline workers, to be able to use the glasses to connect remotely with subject matter experts anywhere in the world, to be able to see what they see through the glasses, and with their hands up, hands-free, to be able to do the repairs, to be able to do the maintenance, to be able to do an escalation, to do an HS inspection, a project visual update. That's one. The other one is for training and for knowledge, which we're going to get eventually to the data, so bear with me, to the training and the actual, to the knowledge for onboarding.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all my 3 questions gone, thank you. But no.
Ask again.
Yeah, on a serious note, and a bit I've been talking about, I'm a guy who suffers from a bad back. Wouldn't it be great if we could actually stand up straight and look at the world up there rather than bending over looking at our phones and looking at our PCs, stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to that because my back kills. You talked about what's happening, but talk a little bit about the benefits, about the ROI. Can you talk a bit about what benefits you're bringing to the organization?
The biggest challenge we have in our business, maybe less in your world, because you're all white collar. I am white collar too now. I used to be blue collar, traveling the world, is that we have a huge skill gap. People don't want to work and get their hands dirty. They all want to work in a nice offices like here, you know, and look nice and air conditioning. And the problem is a major problem across the globe, particularly in Europe, in the US. We all aware of the silver tsunami, and it's not me. The silver tsunami is the baby boomer generation. Are going to be in retiring age in the next 4 years. All that knowledge is living. There is no one today to be able to, how we can retain that knowledge, that data. Knowledge ultimately is data, you know. So how we can retain that knowledge. So one of the key benefits we see that is to be able to use, I'm going to use the term XR, extended reality, okay? Because there's a lot of confusion between, is it virtual reality? No, it's not virtual reality. It's assisted reality. It's augmented reality with its fancy Meta Ray-Ban glasses, the Metas, the Samsungs, the Googles, the Apples. They're all coming and going to be joining the party soon. So the idea is to ultimately use that in terms of benefits, is how we can retain and transfer that knowledge and be able to use the glasses. It's a means to do that. And the easiest, the most simple form, and I'm getting out to data eventually, is video. Where do you go, guys, when you have to go to repair your dishwasher home? Where do you go when you have to repair or check your, a boiler? YouTube. So YouTube, what is YouTube? Video. And what's video? Data. And what's data? Pixels. So I'm getting there. So ultimately, data for us is knowledge through videos. So imagine now if we had our engineers, our technicians, all with glasses to record themselves whenever there is a repair, whenever there is a service, a maintenance, they record themselves. Heads up, hands-free, none of that tripod thing or double camera or 2 or 3 people. No, it's pretty straightforward. And then, and now also, I don't very well, I have not used the AI yet. And I've been talking.
I know you will at some stage.
Yes. So now imagine YouTube for techies or TikTok for techies, but then we add the physical AI layer into it. The physical AI, which is the new wave of AI agentic, which is understanding the real world. So now we've got physical AI looking at those videos, telling us how to do X, Y, and Z, looking at those videos and be able to create procedures. And through AI using glasses, the cameras become the eyes of the UAI, and the mics become the ears of UAI. And then it's with heads up. And I know it sounds very futuristic, but we've been doing that and we've been piloting now for the last half a year. So that is one of the biggest challenges we have in the business, knowledge transfer, knowledge retention. The other one, from terms of benefits, is to be able to cost on travel. Because if you have people to be able to support remotely, you save on traveling. If you save on traveling, you save on CO2. If you save on traveling, you save on costs. And also you gain in productivity. You don't have people going to from A to B and back to A and spend all that money on costs.
And just to be clear, augmented reality or XR, extended reality, is not just about wearables. You can use it with tablets, with phones, with projection. It's just in your particular use case, hands-free is really important.
Hands-free and heads up.
Yeah, which is, again, one of the kind of bigger benefits. Just kind of real quick, and then I'll ask you kind of both a question.
I'm going to be quick, I promise.
Yeah, no, that's fine. You know, the area is doing lots of work on helping companies understand ROI, on security and safety. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the benefits you see of an organization like the area?
Well, it's, I mean, what's for me pretty much my day-to-day business, I've been doing for 8 years, for many folks it's the first day. So rather than go there and trying to reinvent the wheel, they can reach out organizations like you and pretty much take them through that journey hand in hand for that initial business case, you know, for that initial data identification, for that initial key risks, key challenges, and be able to bring that structure from an ROI, then, you know, believe me, it's already half of the battle.
Awesome, right. So this isn't the question I sent you, so now we're... What's a combination of both digital twin and AI that can be used now in the financial world?
Go for it, please.
No, I'm happy for you to go.
No, you go, honestly.
Are you sure?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So for me, digital twin is that dream I had almost 9 years ago. The ability for you to walk in a room like that with your glasses on and to be able to connect, link the digital twin through the glasses, and you walk in and you know exactly what the sensors are because they will be homing images, and you will see where the chamber is, and ultimately able to see where the tickets are. So digital twin me is through the glasses on a fully holographic environment. That connectivity, for me, that's where the link is. And now with physical AI, which is basically Google Maps, but with testosterone in our building, is where we're aiming. And that is, for me, that link of, as I said, going back, what was my recommendation? The way we're going to be all, and as I said, we may don't realize that yet, but we all going to be going down that route, because the iPhone moment for smart glasses is coming. Whether we like it or not, and I know there is a lot of controversy, privacy, and all those challenges, that's where we're going.
Yeah. And Sean, any kind of thoughts, especially from the enabling work you're doing as well?
Yeah, definitely. I'd probably just an additional layer to what you're saying, really. It's, you know, being able to look at, take a particular premises with your glasses on, walk around, but the benefits, obviously, of digital twins are you could play out a scenario. Now, what you could do there is play out a scenario. Well, if I make this choice, what's going to happen to the floor? Are loads of people going to disappear? Are we going to lose lots of jobs? Actually, you know, are we going to benefit in terms of higher profits? And almost just watching in physical, you know, physical sense, this is the impact if I make X, Y, Z decision.
Awesome. Well, please come out and have a little chat and play with some of the stuff. You know, it's a bit difficult because we haven't got loads and loads of devices, but you can have a little look, and I'm very happy to talk to anybody. I want to thank you very much, guys, for some amazing insights.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just want to make one comment to Sean and Miguel. You have brought to life what we do for a living with data. We do data, they take data and turn it into reality. And I thought you both did a fantastic job in bringing that to life. So thank you very much for that. And please stop by and see those devices. Also, please visit our sponsors during the break, our Digital Twin, Element 22, London Stock Exchange, Oteca, Projective, Solidatus, and come back after the break. The doors will be locked. So thank you very much. Okay, welcome back. We do have some people online, right? So I want to welcome the folks online back as well. For the afternoon session, I'd like to introduce our COO, Kyle Morton, who's going to be our master of ceremonies for the afternoon. Kyle.
Thanks, everybody. I've got Carol staring me in the eye and Denise in the back, so we're going to go fast and efficient. All right? No extra breaths, no double talk, nothing. Let's get at it. All right? I've just got the opening session for the rest of the afternoon. I'm just going to be quick introductions. I'm really excited about what we have because we talked a lot about the activity. Now we're going to talk about getting stuff done in the second half of this. So very quickly, where am I? We're going to start off talking about the Data Excellence Program, which is a really key piece of business. I think you'll find it, if you haven't heard already, really valuable, especially in today's world. I'm very excited about the things we're doing and the tools we're providing, the capabilities we're providing to our members and the marketplace at large through our benchmarking capability and also through with E22 and Polistro and also with Solidatis. Really important relationships, really important partnerships, and really valuable tools that you'll get to take a look at. We'll have a really special, Ali, you're going to do the speed presentation once again? All right, clock's on. Last year you were really impressive, so let's see if you beat the time with a really interesting piece of business with the CDMC. And then the BCBS 239, everyone's hearing and talking about it. Want to bring you up to speed there. I'm a little afraid to describe the next section. It's led by Roberto and will be one of a kind. Call your friends, call your family, because it's the only time you're actually going to laugh at a data event. Okay, so, and then we'll wrap things up. So with that, let me introduce my colleague who represents here in the UK and also in Central Europe, Chiara Brown, to take on the first session. Chiara?
Thank you. And yes, please come on. I've got with me Sian McHenry, and she's representing Nationwide. She's the Group Data Governance Director and one of our members. And with me as well, Scott Benge, which is Head of Data and Cybersecurity for Projective Group. So before we start with the panel, a little introduction on our panel called Shine Brightly with benchmarks, DCAM, and the Data Excellence Program. Now, for years, organizations have invested in data, analytics, and AI, and data leaders have faced exactly the same challenge. How to measure success, how to ensure that the board provides you with continuous investment, and how to ensure that your data management journey derives true business value. And that's what we're here for. So that's why the EDM Association has created the Data Excellence Program. The Data Excellence Program is here to help organizations define, measure, and drive their data management journey through an internationally recognized benchmark, the DCAM. The DCAM provides a way to measure, to assess capabilities, to put together an improvement plan, and most importantly, to ensure that you have trusted data to deliver the value to your business. So today, we are joined by Sian, which will tell us how Nationwide has used the Data Excellence Program to prove that, and Scott, which will tell us the perspective of Projective, which is one of our partners, on how they help our members to drive through this journey. So Sian, we'll start with you, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Chiara, and thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it. Apologies in advance. I think I've got the curse of Harry Kane. My voice is starting to disappear right at the point where I need it. And yes, I was screaming at the England game at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning. So that's probably the culprit.
So am I. That's good.
Yeah, so I think from a nationwide perspective, we'd had a growing recognition across the organisation that data was so key to underpinning everything we do, through to customer interactions, operational resilience, and just day-to-day reporting and analytics for regulatory objectives and the wider business. What we wanted to do quite early on was get a really objective baseline as to where we were at. Where were we as an organisation? How did we fit in alongside the industry? And quite importantly, where were our gaps? Where are the blind spots? Where are the things that we needed to focus on for additional investment in order to continue to improve? So that was the core impetus for us to get going.
That's great. Thank you, Sian. And you talked a little bit about why you embarked on this journey, but if you had to pinpoint a particular driver, would you think that business objectives or regulatory response or strengthening data foundation for AI were the driver? Which one would you think, and what was your direction that you took?
Yeah, so I think all three are equally important. We're highly regulated. We need to be able to prove that we're meeting the expectations of the regulators, and equally we have some quite demanding business outcomes that we need to enable with our data. But to do any of that, we needed that baseline. We needed to move away from conversation and opinion into something that was evidence and fact-based. And we started that journey in around 2023 when we used DCAM as our first kind of layer of visibility, if you like, across the organisation to that laser focus on where we were at and what we needed to do.
And that's great, because obviously you talk about journey and I guess what have shaped this journey into moving from a single assessment to actually into continual improvement. So how do you ensure that, and how that program helped to do that and effectively selling it into the board?
Yeah, so I think making it visible was the first starting point, being able to show that all the way from the top down throughout the organisation, what did that mean? Where were we at? How did we compare with our peers? But then it wasn't a once-off. We weren't going to be able to sustain continued improvement if we did it as a one-off activity. I think the strength that it gave us was to take a lot of kind of disparate data initiatives and put a very clear lens across the top of those and be able to translate that into how those data initiatives were then playing back into return on investment for leadership and for our businesses as well.
Thank you. I'm just going to Scott for a minute, and I'll come back for a couple of questions to you both. Scott, from your perspective, obviously you're working with lots of our members, and what do you see, and when you help them through their journey, what differentiate organizations that gain real value from participating to the program rather than just doing a single assessment?
Yeah, exactly. And well, I've got the 5 key points on the screen right here for everybody, but I'm seeing this with our clients. These are the common things that people do right that really does make a difference with the DCAM and the Excellence Program. So don't treat it as just a pure certification with the DCAM. It should be a diagnostic, so find out why you're at a certain capability level and the reasons for that, and understanding the risks of having those capability gaps. That's quite a common ask for our clients at the moment. They want to know what's the risk to their organisation, but also when they close those gaps, what are the potential benefits? So I think that's key for me. As I said on here, benchmark with scrutiny. What does that mean? Compare yourself against your peers. I'm going to mention the point around the senior sponsorship, but that is quite key, and senior execs don't like to know that they're behind their peers, but use the results of the latest assessment to go and compare yourself, because it is a really useful benchmark that we talked about. That senior sponsorship, you have to have it at the top. It can't just be with the data function itself. You have to have the buy-in from your senior execs, very important. And focus on areas of value, plus regulatory compliance is important at the moment. I think a lot of the work that we're doing with our clients is around controls, risks, KPIs and metrics, but you obviously want to focus on the capabilities that are going to give you the most business value. And then last of all, like Sian mentioned, don't treat the DCAM as a one-off exercise. You do want to repeat it on a fairly regular basis. That might be 12, 18 months, but don't treat it as a single one-off. So for me, those are the sort of 5 key differentiators I'm seeing with our clients.
Wonderful, that's great. Thank you, Scott. And so you touched both on the importance of building measurements and as a journey. It is a journey. And when you did the assessment, and I come to you first, Sian, what was the biggest insight or maybe surprise of that emerged from that assessment and that benchmarking exercise?
Yeah, so I think what we learned pretty quickly, rather than the kind of anecdotal kind of noise, if you like, that we were hearing about tools and processes, the real issue was neither of those areas. It was actually getting the right people, the right backing, the right visibility, the right skills, the right training across the organisation in a consistent way. What we found was that it was far harder to crack that consistency organisation-wide. We had some really strong pockets of excellence, and we had other areas that we weren't quite at that level, and we needed to help them help scale and get to the same level of capability across the entire organisation. So I think that was the biggest takeaway. I think it helped us challenge some of the early assumptions we had as well. We'd made some early assumptions in terms of which business areas we thought would be the most advanced. Sometimes that was right, sometimes it actually wasn't. And that was the real useful kind of lens for us to apply. And it actually showed us quite early on where we could put a small amount of effort to give a disproportional amount of return on investment, basically. And that's where we focused the early uplift in our roadmap.
Great, and that goes back into bringing value back into the business. And if I wanted to ask that same question to you, Scott, so what would you see, or what would you, when you work with the organizations that you work with, what are the, I would say, the main assumptions that you would do, or the big surprises, or what comes out as themes?
Well, as I mentioned before, there's quite a big focus with a lot of our clients in financial services on managing risk. There's cybersecurity risk, operational resilience, thinking about AI risk. So that's a really common ask now. So we used to initially do these DCAM assessments and just focus on the capability gaps, but I'm often getting asked by COOs to say, well, no, I need to understand the risks, and I need to then move on from that assessment to think around, well, what are the control gaps I might have, and then thinking around the KPIs and metrics I need to have across the organisation to track that. So that's a common ask for us in the data world. So using an assessment as a kind of initial benchmark that we just talked about, but then thinking around, well, where do you go next, where you want to take it. I agree with Sian on some of the aspects of the value and ROI. I'll talk about that a little bit later on, because that's very, very key as well. But I'm certainly seeing quite a lot of themes around data risk currently.
Yeah, and going back, you said something quite interesting about the risk of not doing something, or what would be the impact of not closing those gaps. Was that something that you found when you chose to do the assessment and go into the data excellence program?
Yeah, I think fixing the foundations and getting that laid strongly across the entire organisation was the first focus. I think there was already the understanding that to use some of the more advanced capabilities, and with AI on the horizon, you're only as good as your foundations. And so there was strong investment to get us up to that base level of critical mass across the entirety of the organisation. As Scott said, really key to kind of have that top-down support. And nationwide, we're really fortunate that comes all the way down from the CEO across the organisation. So that was a huge impetus here. But it was absolutely that focus on how do you get the core disciplines? So how do you understand the metadata, the data quality that drives your organisation? Because that's the core context, particularly with AI. Yeah. If you cannot feed that in organisational knowledge into your AI models, you're going to struggle. And you're going to end up with hallucinations and not get the answers that you're looking for. And
that's one of the question is really obviously with AI at the top of the agenda, of the executive agenda. So obviously the CEO and so on. How does the journey help you to kind of build the trusted data foundation, and how is that journey, I guess, bettered by Nationwide embarking on this?
Yeah, so we now understand as an organisation what critical data we have, who owns it, where is it, how does it flow, and that's so fundamental. It sounds really basic at its core, but actually that's the body of knowledge that drives your entire organisation. If you don't have that, it's very hard to build the next layer of innovation off the top of it and do it safely and at scale. And what we're seeing with AI is if you don't have that from the outset, you're just going to accelerate those weaknesses, and you're going to expose those weaknesses far quicker at machine speed than previously we've been able to build workarounds for poor data quality, lack of ownership, etc. But that luxury is no longer here in an automated world. Having those strong foundations from the outset and using DCAM and the Data Excellence Programme has really put us in a great foundation now to take that next leap.
And obviously you have worked with partners as well to provide some output, right, of that journey that you just did.
Correct, yeah. We really wanted to make sure that we had that impartial view, so we weren't just marking our own homework, that we had somebody who could hold us to account, as well as the EDMA, obviously, because that's the ultimate level of accountability across industry. But yeah, so we work very closely with Accenture, who are our partners for the Data Excellence Programme. And through that partnership, we've navigated from kind of the early entry stages of the journey. And quite recently, we were recognised, as you can see on screen, as the first UK financial services organisation to achieve the gold level status. So we're really proud of that and grateful for the support that EDMA and Accenture have given us in getting there.
That's brilliant. That's great. So yes, it's unveiled the new white paper today. And Scott, from your side, obviously you've worked with many of our members and prospect, and you've recently helped one of our new member becoming on board onto the journey. Do you want to?
Yeah, I can say a little bit about that. But Julius Bayer, so a recent new addition to the EDM Association membership. So that if you guys don't know who they are, they're a Swiss private bank. But we completed a DCAM assessment for them, plus did the DCAM training as well, which they all successfully passed. Not sure I told you that. But no, they really, and so they're using it for a number of different reasons, and probably quite a few of them that Sean just mentioned. So there's regulatory compliance reasons for the, for various reasons in Switzerland, also AI innovation, and also aspects of data risk as well. But yeah, I think they've been pleased with the outcomes, if I do say so myself. So yeah, it's been a really positive engagement.
Great, that's good. And I guess to work with Carol's timing, if for the audience, and if you have to take away one lesson from the journey that Nationwide has been on with this, what would that lesson be? And obviously any other point that you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, I think it was really that, the assessment told us where we were, but the real opportunity was what we did with it. So what we did afterwards and what we continually do with it. So that's that long-standing commitment to data management excellence within the organisation. And as I said, it's less about the technology and much more about the people and the investment in the people and the processes that we have, particularly, you mentioned, Scott, DCAM accreditation. That's been the core part of that, is giving everybody that equal opportunity to understand. Not everybody comes from a data management background as well, to making that accessible in a nice structured way, I think has been key. But yeah, it's not about the score necessarily, it's what you do after that counts.
It's the outcome, and now you continue to improve and now you continue to evolve. Scott, anything you want to add?
No, I think we might cover the question around the executives shortly. I was just going to talk to, often I get asked, well, where do you go next? So I can talk about that now, because that is it. Well, I've done the DCAM, I've done the training, what are some of the next steps? And I'll give a plug for another EDM framework, the Data ROI framework, which I find quite useful myself. It's got various stages, if people haven't seen it, around getting organised for success at the beginning, you aligning with business problems, which is very important, business problems, business objectives, inventory your data products. I know that's been talked about earlier on, but it is it's very useful approach, and a lot of organisations are using data products. Understanding your various business cases and your controls and KPIs, tracking your performance, and then collectively managing your data initiatives, and obviously that can help drive the value. So as I say, that's a common question I get asked. Well, I've done the assessment, I've done the training, well, where do I go next? So I often use that framework to sort of help them on that journey.
Perfect. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Scott. And if you're interested, you can download the Nationwide white paper on Data Excellence Program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wasn't clicking. Thank you.
All right, next up, Just and Rob Wentz, where are you? Rob, it's all yours.
There's not much here. So real quick, I just realized, happened to look at today's date, a year and 3 days ago we released DCAM v3. About a month and a half ago, we released the 2026 benchmark survey, which is based upon the DCAM v3 structure. When we did that, we had also partnered with Predrag and Element 22 and their tool Palustro. And what they did with us, we wanted to deliver the benchmark results accessible to our members in a better platform. So we partnered with Predrag and his team to use a portion of the Palustro tool, and they stood up for the association a dashboard where we can now deliver the content of the benchmark in a much more user-friendly environment, accessible for all our members to find. What we have put out there is this year's benchmark results. We also took the 2023 benchmark results and we migrated them forward so that you can see them in the V3 structure. So Predrag helped us create this environment that we have access to. Our members can do a lot more functionality, and what Predrag is going to present in his 10 minutes that he's got is what this new environment looks like. It's much more robust than it was before. You can actually upload your own assessments so that you can compare side by side your assessment with the benchmark capability. So we'll start with that, and then behind Predrag and his presentation, we've been working with Solidatus, and they're adding new capability to their platform from the AI perspective. That is being made available or will be made available to and within all of the models that we have sitting in Solidatus. So Tom will follow up Predrag and talk about that. So I'm going to turn it over to Predrag and give him his 9 minutes. You can.
Okay, so I have to speak fast, right, to catch up. So the viewer was built really for two purposes. The one is the ability for you to select really a benchmark, the peers that you want to compare yourself to. And two, you know, what Rob mentioned, the ability to upload your assessments, obviously to compare to the peers within the tool, but also selfishly for EDM Association, that we can gain more qualitative type of the assessment input, right? Not the survey and personal, you know, kind of views, you know, that are collected through the survey, but the assessment type of the results, right? So you go to the EDM Connect, on that you go to the DCAM, you know, through the collaboration, I think, menu. And then under that, you will see on the right side, you know, the ability to click on the DCAM viewer and go into it, right? So here is just showing you how to kind of set up the benchmark sample. You know, in this case are the banks with the revenue over the 1 billion. You can download that into a spreadsheet and utilize anything you use really to create reports, if you will, internally. And then on the assessment side, we set up both the capability level and sub-capability level of the DCAM. In this case, the demo is really on the capability level. You can download the template spreadsheet and provide demographic data as well as the scores, and then upload it back, you know, in a way, right? And then you either submit, if you want to submit, you know, in the white label fashion, right, so that we can utilize that later on, or you can just save it and use it internally in a way for your own sake. When you have it up in the viewer, you can do some level of the analysis or, you know, analytics, if I may say, on top of it. And I'll show you, you know, in a minute, you know, when the demo comes, you know, with the abilities to put, you know, any type of the benchmark sample as well as your assessments and compare them, you know, in the diagrams, and then download them as well. So now, you know, it's going to go into the analytics. Here we are having this fictive Halverton Bank DCAM assessment. And we have that bank's benchmark, right? So we can compare them. We can put that as a line, so, you know, easy to see the differences. You can drill down into the capabilities. Then you can go and say you want to see the data behind it. Below it, you will see now the data facts, if you will, related to the assessment. And then because it's 2 columns, you can always do the delta and see the difference, really, where you are compared to the peers. So that's really, in the nutshell, the viewer, right? And the purpose, you know, why we have it. You can download the charts. You can download the Excel results, you know, out of it to make, again, your life easier. But how you get the assessment is really the other part that I want to cover. So, you know, I'm going back to the previous conversation, right? When you do the assessment, you know, it's not just the scores. You know, it's very important to collect the comments, the qualitative input. It's very important to collect the artifacts, not just as the evidences, but as the contextual input, you know, like what we heard before. It's all about the context management when you deal with the AI and when you want to utilize the AI technology, which is heavily behind what you are seeing here. So the ability to generate the recommendations is based really on more facts that you have, right? The less facts you have, you're going to get generic recommendations. You want to get the recommendations that really relate to your initiatives, to your state, you know, et cetera, right? So this is just showing, you know, some of the examples in a way how the data or the information is being collected, how it's being tagged. Some of that you can do manually. Some of that you can utilize the AI tools to help you do that. You know, one thing, you know, I would add, at the last session, it was mentioned the executive sponsorship. You know, I would just add to that, it's important to have executive involvement in the assessment. You know, you're not going to force your executives to do the DCAM assessment, but you can make an interview of 30 minutes with them and get the transcript with their inputs on what do they think about the data state at the company or in their area, as well as what do they want to have, you know, how do they want to see in the future. And that has to be input, in our view, in the assessment. And the tool supports, obviously, upload of the transcripts. It doesn't do the transcript itself, you know, in a way. Right, so this is just, you know, the ability to do and view the data in a different ways, how it is scored. You know, you can use the pivot table type of the approach to see the anomalies or the outliers so that you can react to that and analyze why. Sometimes, you know, somebody was scoring because they had a bad day, or sometimes they really have a different opinion, but you want to get, you know, really get to the point of why. You can compare the different things, you know, like what you have done so far. So last year, if we did assessment, I compared to this year, and then I compared to the peers. I compare to the SMEs or the data organization. I can do the interviews, as you can see example here, and get the phrase cloud type of the chart. I can use the AI to generate the summary and to generate the themes that have been collected from the executives. You know, then once you have that, you know, then you can move and you can generate the, you know, in this case, findings report with the agentic AI behind the scene doing the work for you. Doing, you know, whatever the number of the agents, you know, in this case, we just organized it based on the slides in the deck, but you can organize it in a different way. Collect it at the end, create the executive, you know, if you will, summary, and then, you know, go into the report, which is fully generated, what you have seen, what you are seeing here. So the objectives and the approach taken out from the document, the executive summary, which is taken out of all of the things produced, the participation in the assessment, then the overall results compared to the data group, results compared to the last year, the results compared to the peers, and then the teams that you have seen before, the comparison of different divisions within the firm, the strengths and the weaknesses or gaps, as we call them in politically correct way. And then you have rationale behind it, like why. You know, not just, you know, generated, but why you generated in that way, because you can influence then the next version of the report that you want to generate, right? And once you have the findings, then the next step is to do the recommendations, right? So here, that executive input and the comments and the qualitative input starts to play extremely important role, right? So you can then see on an executive level, you know, like what are the most important things. You can see, you know, like what happens if we do nothing, which is this, you know, slide. You know, what is affected, if you will, by the things not being done. How you prioritize the things, you know, to generate the recommendations. What are the main priorities? What those main priorities have as the recommendations to be done. And then you can move and say, what are the low-hanging fruits? Like, what do I do in 30, 60, 90 days so I can show the value out of this, right? And then at the end, you know, it's like detailed set of the recommendations, right? So for this, it's a critical thing to provide that context, right? To provide as much input as you can in the process. And then that produces, if you will, the data that can be uploaded into the benchmark viewer, as one of the assessments, etc. So if you want to hear more or you would like to see more, we have the stand, in the back, and would love to show you. Thank you.
Thanks, Predrag. Back in my former life when I was KPMG, and we used Plustra all the time, and this is miles beyond where that was. So very impressive where they've taken their tool and the capabilities that they have. Worth every penny, in my opinion, to help support an assessment. Moving on from that, I'll introduce Tom, and you're mic'd up. I'll shut this off.
Great, so good afternoon, everybody. So my name's Tom Truman, and I'm the CRO for Solidatus, and I run the go-to-market team. Just wanted to start off by telling a short story, really, about the history of Solidatus. So Solidatus was founded 10 years ago by two technical banking consultants who are based in London, who really wanted to digitize the data management arena. They had more than 50 years of experience between them, and they really wanted to apply that knowledge to a piece of software rather than doing things manually as they had done before. So they took the bold move of bootstrapping the company, and they hired two interns from Imperial College London. Shortly after, well, a couple of years after, and several years of development, they took version 1 of the product to market. And they really went big. So the first customer they landed was Deutsche Bank, which is testimony to what the product was doing. Thereafter, they landed HSBC. HSBC then became an investor in the company. The rest is really history. So I'm just going to walk through a few slides, if that's going to click, yeah. Just to describe a bit more about what we're doing. So Solidatus now supports all regulatory scrutiny, really. So BCBS 239 is our bread and butter. DORA as well is being addressed in organizations like London Stock Exchange. There's a huge rush, as we've all talked about today, to AI. You can't load in data into your AI models unless it's trusted, and Solidatus is providing that trusted data. All of you in the audience will be, at some point going through audits, and we reduce audit time down from months to weeks and maybe even days in some cases. And we really distill that infrastructure chaos. So where you've got hybrid deployments of both on-prem and cloud platforms, we demystify all of that and provide a pane of glass really over all of that data so you can plan your migrations effectively. So our mission is to create a shared and always-on view of how data flows, so teams can move faster, stay compliant, and reduce risk. As Gartner says, context is king, and Solidatus is providing that context in data. We are that pane of glass, as I said. As you can see, over the last 10 years, we've made quite an impact on the market. Organizations like Barclays, London Stock Exchange, and even some of the regulators like the FCA are using Solidatus. We have a great ecosystem of partners from EY and Accenture, and more recently we've signed global partnerships with Microsoft and Experian, and we are their global lineage partners now. We have great references. Bank of New York is a great example of where they've deployed Solidatus for BCBS 239. But the modeling capability in Solidatus is also very powerful, and HSBC are using it for their cross-border data sharing to ensure that the data they're moving around the organization, they've got permissibility to move that data around. And as I love this quote from London Stock Exchange, lineage is the holy grail for financial services. So London Stock Exchange, all of their data products that they're building and then marketing and selling to organizations like you, are all on this journey to be mapped in Solidatus. I think they're about 80% through mapping thousands of data products, which is quite a feat of engineering. So more now to our partnership with EDM. So historically, you've had access to Solidatus through a viewer license. You could log in and see some pre-built models. But what we're really now doing is leaning into the partnership with the EDMA and providing a sandbox environment, so you can upload synthetic data, data that you're allowed to move into the platform, and do some testing. You'll also be part of a community of practice where you can all share ideas. And really this is an opportunity to collaborate, test out the capabilities of the software, and share ideas and thoughts amongst yourselves. So in the coming days, you will receive an email with information on how to gain this access. And at this point, I'm just going to hand over to John, who's going to give a very short demonstration of what you'll get access to. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's John Hellman. I'm a solutions engineer at Solidatus. And this afternoon, I'm just going to give you a very quick tour of our AI assistant that we've added into Solidatus, which is really, really improving our customer experience. And the essence of it is really sort of two primary use cases. It allows the occasional user to be able to come in and use natural language and interact in the way that you'd expect with an AI assistant. But it also lets the expert user come in and actually do real work. So that can be creating models, that could be updating those models, or really doing some deep analysis to understand where there may be gaps. And so let me sort of start by showing some of this. So building the data lineage often starts with a blank screen. But with Solidatus AI Assistant, we're changing that, because you could upload something like our entity relationship diagram, and the AI assistant will start building that model for you straight away. It understands and it will create all of the entities, the fields, the relationships, and build the model. It's taking a flat file, an image, and turning it into a usable asset. You now have something which can be maintained and used as part of your lineage data flow. And when engineers write code for Python notebooks or SQL, or they're doing complex pipeline transformations, that lineage can often be hidden. And again, what we can do is we can upload that into our AI assistant, and we can expose that and make it visible and part of the flow. What you're seeing here is the way in which it can bring out those columns. It can show the transformations that are happening and make it part of that lineage model in a way that would be very difficult or would be very manual before that. And then when you want to add business context, so this is thinking about adding column names and business terms and bringing those together. You can review every change that's taking place. And then you can start to dive into the information, so looking at the fields themselves, understanding how it flows end to end, but also the transformation. You can actually see the transformation logic that's happening within that flow as well. And what you get is you're going from that raw code to an actual lineage diagram and how that flows through. And it really is that simple. And now that the lineage is built, we're thinking about the governance work and how that begins. And so this is now looking at the PII tagging and whether we've got any gaps here. So we've asked the AI to do the analysis, and it's coming through. It's flagging where we should have maybe tagged as PII some of these elements. It's showing that in the model, but also showing it in the response text as well. But then we can ask it to do the work. So with another prompt, we're saying, hey, go and make those changes, go and update that model for us. But we're still in control. We are actually managing this. So whilst it can make the changes, we can review that. We can say, yes, we'll allow it. No, we won't, or whether it should flow on. And then the BCBS 239 gap analysis. This would take months normally. But with the Solidatus AI Assistant, it's a single prompt. It surfaces those gaps. You can see exactly where you've got items missing within your flow, and it actually is building that remediation map for you, so you can understand exactly what you need to do to make yourself compliant again. So thank you. I know I'm out of time, but this is really what we talk about here is turning this what we would say is the AI-powered lineage, but with that human governance and it's a really important part of that. We've got our stand outside, so please do come and talk to us. We'd love to show you more about this, and I'll run off before I get thrown off. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, next up, Ali. I'd like to introduce Ali Beige, who is another outstanding friend of the association and a truly capable person. And last year gave one of the better presentations at Mach 5. I can't wait to see what you accomplished today.
Before he goes Mach 6,
yes.
I just want to call out one thing on Solidatus. We've been working with Solidatus very closely on the BCBS 239, mapping it to DCAM. So taking the concepts of BCBS 239, taking the capabilities of DCAM, and using the tool to map those. So when you're in front of a regulator and you want to demonstrate that you're in alignment with BCBS 239, this tool is enabling us to make those connections. So when you stop by their booth, ask them about that. We also have a BCBS 239 group, which I think is going to be speaking.
I think that's probably coming up, exactly.
So we'll learn more about that. But thank you to Solidaris and thank you to Frederick for the work and the contribution.
Hi everybody, thanks for having me back. I promised to speak more slowly this year and I've been given 4 whole extra minutes to allow that. Yeah, doubtful. If you're interested in seeing Solidaris in action, actually, the talk I gave here last year was me tracing all of the data on the internet into a frontier LLM using Solidaris, and that's on the EDMA's YouTube channel. So just look for ADAC last year. This year, I'm going to give you an update on what we've been doing in the CDMC working group for artificial intelligence. A bit of background on me, I spent 20 years at Morgan Stanley and then moved to LSEG as the chief data architect there for the data business and led the creation of CDMC. The team behind that, there was 150 organizations contributing to it, co-chaired by LSEG and Morgan Stanley. Put together a spec of what good looks like for data management. And it was ostensibly because people were moving data management to cloud and you wanted to make sure you did it right when you moved to cloud. But in practice, it's just a set of common capabilities. When we were doing that project, we deliberately left out analytics and AI for scope purposes. So we could finish the CDMC stuff, which we did do and published in 2021. And we put a working group together starting in 22, called the Analytics Working Group, and then ChatGPT came along and made probabilistic analytics very popular. So we combined the deterministic analytics that you'd find in your risk and evaluation teams and your quant platforms with the probabilistic analytics and the types of controls you need on Gen AI, and worked in a working group over the last, well, I guess, 4 years or so. That working group included experts from Databricks, so we had Lexi Casson, Standard Chartered, the head of analytics there, head of AI governance from JP Morgan, and Mpo Mazeki from Standard Bank, who's, I think, on the live stream at the moment. Hey, Mpo, thank you for your contribution. And also Sonam, who is sitting at the back here, if you want to wave, who's been recently joined and helped to create the material you're going to view today. So you can thank her for it not being one gigantic mega dense slide, and it's a bit easier to explain. We published the AI control framework 2 years ago, at the end of 2024, for people to give feedback on, and multiple members of the working group used it throughout last year, gave us feedback on what were the easy parts, the hard parts, and some use cases, and I'm going to share those today. So why would you do this thing? What is it worth? What's it useful for? You've heard lots of reasons why doing data governance properly and AI governance properly is useful. There are some, however, actual hard rules that you need to follow unless otherwise you're going to break the law. So you need to be able to do ethical impact analysis on your AI use cases if you're a universal bank and have kind of end customers. You need to follow the regulations in every jurisdiction that you operate. You would like, probably, if you're any of the financial services companies that I've ever worked in, to care about operational efficiency and automate controls and make sure you don't have staffs of people doing manual governance checks. And also the ultimate goal here is that we want to be able to take risk in a managed way. So maybe take less risk on the operational risk side, or take more financial risk in a measured way. And that means understanding the risks you're taking. So here is a framework that describes all of the things that could go wrong, the things you're supposed to automate and operationalize so that they don't go wrong as often, or hopefully not at all. The framework's divided into 3 layers. There's a foundational layer that is CDMC. So if you've done a CDMC assessment or you've got a CDMC qualification, it's all the same set of controls around data, all those 14 key controls. And then we've extended it in 2 different ways. There's a layer of data and analytics controls, which are 10 of the CDMC controls that are essentially unchanged. The scope of them is expanded so that the data assets have become data, model, and other analytics environments assets. But they've got the same business goal for each of those controls. And then we found there were 5 areas that we needed to significantly enhance for generative AI and deterministic analytics as well. That included enhanced AI use case governance, being able to do ethical impact analysis as well as privacy impact analysis. Data quality needed to be split out into data quality and performance evaluations on models. Model risk management, risk taxonomy was incredibly useful. So Emma York was talking earlier, and her virtual partner was Sanja Hukovic, who runs AI governance and model risk at LSEG. They contributed their expertise in the model risk space so that we could bring these 2 groups of people with very mature best practices together into one framework. And then in the enhanced audit trail area, you'll see a little bit of Solidarity again later, where you want to be able to do not just data lineage, but also functional lineage on the models that are part of your orchestration or your agent framework, and be able to understand what data they've been exposed to so you know what they do and don't know. If you're familiar with CDMC, you'll know that it's made up of 6 different component areas, and I'll run through the sub-capabilities, or capabilities and sub-capabilities in each of those areas. Let's start with governance and accountability. Here, the governance accountability includes making sure you have a business case for why you're doing data management or AI governance, having very strong ownership over the data assets and model assets in your inventory, having authoritative sourcing and understanding transparently what downstream consumers are consuming from your authoritative source or authorized redistributors, and understanding the sovereignty and cross-border movement risks, in particular the software export risks involved in moving models around the world and where you can operate various types of models and classes of models. In cataloging and classification, this is probably the most important capability. It's having an automated catalog that's pre-populated by the data as it gets created in your platform. This is easier on cloud than it is in a large sprawling kind of on-prem estate. But you, as well as your data catalog, need a model inventory so you know which models are being used by which use cases, and if you find there are vulnerabilities in those models or biases, so you can quickly identify what's going on there. When you've got that list of all your data assets and all your models, you can run a classifier over them to work out which ones are sensitive. Hint, everything in a bank is sensitive. So, you know, you run your classifier over it, it'll tell you to turn on the rest of the control framework for all of your data. And what does that mean? Well, for all of the sensitive data and all of the important models that you've got, making sure they're properly entitled so that you know who's got access to use them, and also tracking who is actually using them, because these things are expensive. Being able to do ethical impact analysis on the use cases that you've got for both your data and your models. For sensitive data, you need to ensure that they're secured properly. And that means at rest, in motion, and sometimes in use as well. And also that they're integrated into your data privacy framework so that you've got privacy impact assessments that are automatically triggered when you discover that you've got sensitive personal information or PII in a particular use case. There's a control area around information lifecycle management. So that is the data lifecycle that you're probably very familiar with, about creating data, keeping it around until a regulation says you're able to destroy it, and then destroying it in the right way. But also models have a life cycle to them as well. It's very high cycle time, a very fast cycle time in the AI space, but there are lots of other models that are around as well, risk evaluation models that also need these sorts of life cycle management capabilities. And you end up with a lot of metadata around those models. And then looking at the architectural side of this, so that would be optimizing where you're storing and processing your data, where you're accessing your models, understanding the cost of those and being able to integrate that cost data back into the catalog so you can see the cost of compute, the cost of storage, the cost of inference, and the other things that you might be doing with your models and data. And also enhancing the audit trail, so understanding the provenance of your data, where it's come from, the way it flows through the different pipelines in your analytics plant or in your data processing plant, and going beyond that BCBS 239 use case of understanding critical risk elements and where they've been sourced through, and being able to source or being able to show they're coming from authoritative sources, to really understand what data has a particular model or an environment containing a set of models been exposed into that environment, so you can understand what it does and doesn't know about your use case. That's a lot of different capabilities and sub-capabilities. Where should you start? So this has proved to be a useful artifact we created in the last year. There are certain controls that you must have at all times when you're dealing with real data. So start off by knowing what data you've got in your catalog and running a classifier over it, and then entitling it, encrypting it, and doing privacy impact assessments properly. And then during the development phase of your project or program, then you can add on additional capabilities. And then there are some which only really apply once you've been in production, for a little while, and you want to be able to come to those later. So there's a kind of plan of action here if you're not sure how to proceed. But what kinds of things have people been doing with the framework? So we've got a couple of examples from working group participants. So Emma and I at LSEG were developing this framework and also using it to inform the AI governance frameworks and data governance frameworks that LSEG was using. It was useful as a list of all the things we could possibly care about, and we can prioritize those by business case. One of the larger working group participants who had a universal bank with lots of different divisions, all had their own governance functions. They were using the ADAC framework as a kind of Rosetta Stone to allow all of the different AI, model risk, and data governance teams to collaborate with each other and relate their terms and definitions to each other, and then be able to do a maturity assessment across the different control functions and show where there were best practices in AI governance going on that could be shared with the wider group. We've also had a kind of fun thing here. I left LSEG in December, and I've just started a new role at a new company. But in the intervening time, I did some fun advisory work in the data space, which included building a bot of myself based on this framework, and you'll see Olibot in a second. I actually did leave that bot behind doing a project at one of the companies that I worked with, which is quite fun. So let's show you a little bit of that. One of the working group members is this company called Total Neural Enterprises. They build an enterprise AI platform called Compass that you can give projects to, and they've got a kind of digital workforce that do those projects for you. And the data capability in there is me. Not everything I can do, maybe 10% of everything I can do, but the data stuff, it knows about some frameworks. So I've got a demo here, and hopefully the sound will come through well, to just show you how you take a framework like ADAC and turn it into something actually useful for you in your day job. So let's see if this works properly. I don't think I can click on the thing to make the video play. If anybody's got the mouse.
Just wave to them.
Yeah, there I can see them giving me the "we're working on it" signal.
So if you had an AI agent running it, it would go on.
That's yeah. AI's got some way to go before it could do everything that a human could do. Any chance of clicking it? No. There's no way of playing the video. Okay. Well, what you would see is it ingesting a number of different frameworks here. And here's Ollie, your compliance governance advisor. So it's learnt these models. It's very fanatical about only using knowledge from these frameworks, and in its skill and workflow definitions, it's very prescriptive about only using data that's been through a governance process and been through a standardization process, so that you're using genuine best practices. And then what it would show you later is it offers to do an assessment of your maturity in various areas, and it can take you on a guided conversation where it'll ask you questions about your maturity in various different capabilities, and it'll use the full CDMC spec to do that. It also offers to go and inspect your code bases and some of your projects to try and find evidence that you're following some of these control guidelines. So you can imagine having Olibot running in the background doing data governance stuff or AI governance stuff in all of your projects is a fairly cheap way of having this small army of minions doing the right thing at all times. So that's the goal there. I'll make sure that this video gets put up later.
We'll publish it with the recording of this.
Perfect, right, we'll make sure that that all works. That's cool. There is an infographic, which Emma teased earlier, that is something like a one-page view of the ADAC framework, and there's a slightly more wordy version of that that shows the key controls. So if you were going to do nothing else, but you wanted to do 15 things tomorrow that made your organization better at managing the risks around AI and data governance, then these 15 paragraphs here are the things to ask yourself, am I doing that thing? How mature am I? Use the 6-point scale from the EDMA scoring system, see if you can get to level 5. No organization that I'm aware of has ever got to level 5 in all of the different areas, but maybe it's possible to do. And if you want to get involved with us, we meet on a Monday at 3 p.m. London time. If you want to join us, all of the information, including the slides, actually with the working video, come think of it, if you snap this QR link, it'll take you to the EDM Connect page for the ADAC working group, and the slides are there on the first paragraph that you get to, and you can get more information about who to contact to join the group and come and collaborate with us. We are doing some collaboration on operationalizing AI governance with the AI governance groups that meets on a Wednesday. It's got a much broader remit. We're really focused on operationalizing these controls, getting it to be automatic so that you don't have to have lots and lots of humans doing this work. And that's it. I think that's my final slide.
Well done, Ali.
That's right.
Impressive. Next up, Reigniting BCBS 239 for AI. Stella, if you can step up with your panel and we'll get moving. How are we doing, Carol?
We're slightly over, but we're doing
Slightly over. We're good. Slightly is good.
perfect.
Even better.
Perfect.
Thank you.
How do I know if it's working? The microphone? I guess I can talk loud enough. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Today, we're going to talk about Reigniting BCBS 239. So about a year ago, we had our working group developed with the EDM Association, and we took a pause to reassess how we want to structure the working group. But today what we'll do is I'll do a quick introduction to Dominic and then pass it on to Scott. We'll just talk about why BCBS 239 is still relevant, because we still have a lot of people coming up to us asking us about the working group. And actually, I think, Scott, you had some unsolicited folks come up to you today.
I have already, yes.
Yeah.
And hopefully a few more later on. Right.
So Dominic, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your role.
Yeah, absolutely. So firstly, absolute pleasure to be able to talk to you all today. So I'm Dominic Sanchez. I'm the Global Data Programs Director for SMBC Group. And I would say this topic is extremely close to my heart, as I'm sure it is many of you, with BCBS 239 being one of the key programs in my portfolio. But fantastic to be able to talk to you all today.
Yeah, hi everybody. I think I've met a few of you before, but I'm Scott Benge. I'm Head of Data Management and Cyber Strategy for Projective Group. As Stella mentioned, we're keen on reigniting the BCBS 239 working group with the EDM Association, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on.
Yep. So maybe, Scott, you can give us a bit of an overview what BCBS 239 is.
Yeah.
And up here, yeah, we're not going to go through all of it in detail, but I think we'll provide a high-level overview.
Yeah, so I guess not everybody in the audience is from financial services or maybe a GSIB or a DCIB, but just a bit of a recap of what it is, and particularly some of the ECB's concerns. So, in fact, BCBS 239 has been around for over a decade, 2013, so it's a little bit scary that it's sort of getting focus again. But it was originally designed around the 14 principles. They're detailed up there. And the goal is to improve decision-making, enhance your crisis responsiveness, and ensure sound risk governance. So that's the objective. It is based on these, as I say, 14 key principles. They're categorized into governance, architecture, risk data aggregation, risk reporting, and supervisory review. But quite importantly, a couple of years ago, May 2024, the ECB came out with strongly recommended that GSIBs, DCIBs make some really strong improvements in their data aggregation capabilities and their internal risk reporting. So they came out with a number of areas of concern. So the number one, and it was referenced in fact last year in the working group, was around accurate data lineage. A few other areas of concern around ensuring the responsibility of the management body, the actual scope of your data governance framework, overall roles and responsibilities for that data governance, having integrated data architecture, effective data controls, timeliness of internal risk reporting, and effective implementation programs. So, but one of the key messages that they gave out to these financial organizations was around that they need to address these areas of concern in a reasonably short time frame. So in fact, I understand there's going to be another ECB review or view coming out in Q4 this year. So it'll be interesting to see how they think financial institutions have progressed. What are we seeing as a consultancy with our clients? We are seeing the challenge around data lineage. I mean, we'll talk around some of the challenges. I know Dominic we're going to talk around some of the AI-based solutions that we're seeing being used. Data quality and integration infrastructure is a challenge for financial services organizations with legacy infrastructure. Governance and ownership, as I mentioned, and actually getting that cross-organizational alignment are the sort of key areas that we're seeing that are challenging for organizations. But I'll stop with that overview and hand back to Sally.
Thank you. So, Dominic, you have an interesting perspective because you went from consulting into
the other side.
Exactly. Absolutely. To the other side.
The good side.
So maybe you can give us your insight why it's still relevant.
I think it's a really good question. It's a very pertinent topic that we're discussing here. I think it's undeniable that BCBS 239, the concepts absolutely support an effective AI agenda. If we look at the concepts, the requirements, the expected outcomes, they're absolutely key to underpinning AI operations. You mentioned, and we've heard it all here today because it is so important, we talk about robust data management, the governance side, you've mentioned lineage. Truly understanding your data supply chain, understanding where your data source is key to giving you confidence in your outcomes. I mean, if that's maybe explaining, AI-based decisions to a regulator, if you're that far advanced in your organization, through to understanding the outcomes from your AI models, that truly underpins those capabilities. Even, if we stretch the elements around the controls environment, and, previous presentations spoke about that a little bit as well. That could be around your data quality controls. It could be your non-data controls and how you use your RCSA. But all of those are foundational elements to good AI operations. The way that I like to look at it for 239, and certainly with the way that I want to push it with our organizations, is really 239 enables you to build that controlled, traceable, clean data layer that underpins your AI solutions. And I think that should give confidence to institutions that have invested time and money over the years on that BCBS 239 journey, that roadmap that is so challenging and complex, because I'm sure that they'll see benefits and fruition coming from that when they start implementing AI capabilities.
So how do you see AI challenging 239?
Oh, another good question. Look, we touched on a few things around the supply chain, and if we think about BCBS 239, something that's really top of the agenda that they care about is those manual interventions or non-strategic solutions in the data supply chain, EUCs, manual adjustments, and the controls around them. And I'm sure all of us in our organizations get that push, to invest and build time into building AI models or solutions and controls. But if we don't expand BCBS 239 and adapt to cover those, I think we'll see a proliferation of AI tools that potentially replace EUCs, might replace adjustments, but again, we're still hampered by those problems that we've seen before. So I think that's one of the key elements.
Thank you, Dominic. I'm just paying attention to the time. So maybe, Scott, you want to talk a little bit about the applications for AI?
Yeah, maybe a little of the solutions we're seeing. So, you know, we're talking around the foundations can support AI. I mean, the good thing is there's a lot of great AI solutions that can help with building those data management capabilities. So you mentioned, you know, we talked about the lineage, you mentioned the EUCs. You know, we're seeing a lot of great stuff that, for one of our clients we're working at the moment, we've found some solutions that can scan those EUCs, they can understand the transformations, they can actually load them into their governance tool so they can put them under governance. You know, the lineage is getting better, still some technical challenges, but a lot of our clients are working to try and get that fully automated end-to-end lineage, you know, DQ out of the box. The solutions are much better than they used to be, and I'm sure probably in 6-12 months they'll be even much better again. So you can certainly, you know, in my opinion, you can use AI to also help support building those data management capabilities.
So before we jump into the working group, maybe Dominic, do you have any closing thoughts you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think I've touched on them. I would stress the point that it's a long journey, and it's still quite a journey for institutions on BCBS 239. But it is absolutely pertinent, not just to AI, but to future capabilities and data. And I think, to Scott's point, it is interesting to see that we are advancing tooling in that space to support and use AI to fix problems that we see. So, thank you.
The mythical one bank who's compliant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who is it?
We don't know, exactly. Thank you, guys. So maybe if you guys can take a moment and scan, we have a BCBS 239 survey. So the survey will give us insight into what you guys want to do in terms of priorities with our working group. So actually, Scott will be leading the working group from Projective Group alongside some EDM folks. And then if you want to join the working group, the second QR code is to join the working group. We also have a link there to the webinar we did back in February. And we likely will have participation from the ECB on a quarterly basis to our working group. So make sure to stay tuned. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Just a quick plug to our friends Solidatis. They actually do provide all of our members with DCAM mapping to BCBS 239. So if you are a member, make sure to log on to EDM Connect and you can access it from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Okay, I'm going to ask everybody to limber up a little bit and close out with a pretty active panel, one of a kind, I guarantee you that. We'll have to set the stage here for a bit.
While my friends are setting the stage, I'll do a bit of a warm-up with you, because welcome to the Data Excellence Gym, proudly offered by UBS today at 5BG, right? So we have two things to do. One, the theme we're going to be exploring today, data is a team sport. And boy, you need it. And so I need to do two things. First, raise the oxygen in the room. And second, understand a little bit what I'm dealing with. Okay, so what I will ask you, if you can, please stand up. Now, we were thinking of doing a metaphor of a team sport, but being Italian, any metaphor about football is completely out. Secondly, tennis is probably going to create some problems with left and right. So what we thought was, let's go for rowing. Now imagine you are in the skiff, the 8-rower boat maybe in the regatta is going to happen this week or last week, I don't remember. Last week, okay. So what I want you to do is to hold your imaginary oar. That's what you say in English, right? Oar. And now, what I want you is to give your best shot. When I blow the whistle, I want to give you give the best shot at rowing as fast as you can. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Go, go! Faster, faster, faster! Now, look left, look right, look in front of you, look behind you. Faster, like if your bonus was depending on it. Come on, come on, come on. All right, that's fine. So, you are all very good athletes. What's the problem? If we were putting you on an 8 boat, we would have probably smashed it. right? Why? Because you don't have something that is tying the whole thing together. You don't have the synchronization. You don't have the coordination that governance, good data governance, good data foundation, good fitness, because some of you were better than others. Actually, I have to give this is the first of it. That's for you, because you are actually quite a good Robert. So that's for you. That's actually, I want to say that's limited edition, right? That's is actually built purposely for this one. Is now a certified data personal trainer, because that's what we're going to talk about today, right? How we get ready. Now you can sit down again. Hopefully the oxygen will go up. So if you thought this was tough, right? Imagine, even if you were in a boat, a proper boat, and you were all synchronized, and imagine that what you do every day is not just racing, but now you want to do AI. AI is like the pinnacle of your discipline. It's like going to the Olympic Games. And if you want to go to the Olympic Games, you can't train just for a week, right? So we need to take care of the data. So to take care of our data today, I'm my team here. So what we have here, first of all, is Mr. Kyle.
I'm the business guy. I know it all. How hard is AI? Really?
And to help us, we have Palome, who's our data design authority, data architect. She's going to be helping us as a basic second in command data personal trainer. And just a very good team. We always have an extra bench, strong bench. So we had a problem at the beginning of this today. We lost one of our panelists, but Mehmet came in, like standing in, and yeah,
10 minutes ago.
Literally, he had the time to do one rehearsal at 3:30. So be kind. But yeah. Mehmet is going to be our data domain owner, and basically also sort of a video-assisted data personal trainer. He's going to be the one observing and telling us what's going wrong. Right. So there are going to be 3 exercises. The first one is more around intent. It's more around what you're trying to do. It's more around how mindful you are of the business opportunity you are having. So throughout the
AI, this is awesome. I can save money, I can make money, I can check credit worthiness, I can check my churn. I can also do that by region. This is really, wait a minute, whoa, I'm out of control.
Oh, let's stabilize you there a little bit, Kyle. You're throwing around an awful lot of terms, including your mic. And, and we really just need to think about, before we can model anything for you for this business use case, we need to think about the data you're going to be using, its purpose, and we need to think about other constraints like privacy and sovereignty. And then we can do something. And maybe, Mehmet, you have a few additional observations.
Hold on, Carl. Have you thought about how sustainable your data is? Have you defined your data? You mentioned client. Which client? You mentioned region. Which region? You mentioned quality and control. Of what? You have no definitions.
That hurts. But I'm a business guy, and I don't know why that's even important. Does it really matter?
Stay there. It matters, right? It matters because we find that every day. So we are living in an environment in which this is going to be called a whistle by someone, is going to be called a concertina by someone else. And then is the AI hallucinating. We are the one hallucinating. That's why we need, DCAM gives us the opportunity to put together at the center of our business a decent business knowledge, a decent catalog, the understanding of who we are. If we know who we are, now this big mirror in front of us is called AI, is it we are now able to see perfectly what we want to do, how difficult it is for us, how much we're going to be able to extend ourselves without falling. Second exercise is all about stamina, core strength, and of course, exercises.
Whew. Well, I got all that defined. I know everything. Paloma, can you just give me the data and let's get going with this thing?
Sure.
Thank
Here,
you.
take these.
Whoa, this is heavy.
Yeah, that's all the data debt we've been carrying around for you over the following year, over the number of years we've been working for you.
I never knew.
Have you thought about all the data that you've got there? Do you know how much cleansing we've been doing? And we've just been taking it from that source over there because it's just been easier for us.
Can't tell you if it's the right source or not. So this is all the data debt we have to consider.
Really, is that important? Hold on, Carl. Do you know where you're sourcing your data from? Is it a master source? Have you ensured its quality? Have you simplified your landscape in your data architecture? Have you got any kind of quality controls? And by the way, why are you thinking about this at the very end of the project and not at the beginning of the project? And my last question, after you've fixed all of these problems, are you still going to make money? Oh.
Happens all the time, right? There is an afterthought. We know how to do the business requirement, functional requirement, then we build, we design, and then when we're reminded about our data testing, guess what? Data is not good enough. And now, whatever you were thinking about the status of your data is actually something you need to fix, or even worse. You make a nice decision to go live. We're going to fix this in BAU. Guess what? The BAU is the one you never do. So what you do, you're keeping on accumulating this data debt. You're keeping on signing this IOU to someone, and you're keeping on making your system, your environment more complex. More complex system, more suboptimal change, more suboptimal change, more complex system, blah, 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 blah. One day, you break. And that's not allowed because your AI is going to really suffer from that. Because you do a nice little pilot in a greenhouse, in a sanitized environment, and then works. It's actually predicting the profitability based on the shoe size of the CEO of the company I'm dealing with. Wow, fantastic. Then you free this thing in the open, and then dies because you find absolutely not incredibly nice data, operational data to feed off. And then what happens? Your pilots, POC, spend money and don't go anywhere. Third exercise. Now we're thinking about keeping our performance. Peak performance, we reach performance. What happens next?
Whew, I got everything in order. Palomi's been nice to me. I'm scared as hell as Mehmet, but I think I got that in order. I think I'm ready to let it go. I've got everything ready. Wait a minute. What?
Here, try this on.
Oh, much better. Now I have a little bit more control.
Do you remember all those data quality rules we talked about? Do you remember all that compliance stuff we talked about? We've put in some guardrails to enforce all of that.
For a business person?
Sure.
I see you're holding on now, Carl. You finally got some guardrails, and do you know what? The more you practice, the stronger your core's going to get, the more you can reuse everything that you've learned, and the more sustainable it is.
Can I make more money that way too?
I don't know if the business case stacks up, but yes, absolutely. Reuse, subscribe, not copy, always better.
Thank you. Perfect. So, not finished yet. Why we're always insisting on data control environment, right? It's not just because we want to control and actually we don't want our AI to create some problems after, because we go live, it's working, it's fine. But how do we know? And data control environment is the one that not only keeps you in the guardrails so you make your board happy. More importantly, the next athlete is going to come, is going to find something that has already been broken in. So it's going to find something that's reusable. It's going to find something that can be trusted, and so on, and so on, and so on. So what you achieve is also that you accelerate your time to data, or your time to AI, with a lower cost. So this is what we wanted to demonstrate today. We think that the EDM Association with the DCAM 3.1 provides you the ground, the exercise machine, the regime, the circuits, to increase your fitness and your maturity. So the one thing we want to do is probably ask the audience, there's the limited edition to be won. If there is anyone that wants to tell us, based on what we said, if there is an example, if there's something they're going to do from tomorrow, July the 8th, to get better at this and winning AI. At this point, if you don't say anything, it's fine. I have something else, so don't worry. Right? That's good. I have to embarrass someone. And the someone I want to embarrass is someone that over the year, I can say that has been more than a mentor, and not because we're having the same heritage, a godfather, but I think as the group of people that are here and people that are online, I think they owe this person a lot, because we are all sitting on shoulders of a giant. And the giants have been around pushing the enterprise data management agenda, always with a smile, always with a good approach to what's happening around, always making you think that even if you are in the deep, deep recesses of, I hate my CEO, yeah, but you need to insist, right? I think this person is John Bottega. Yesterday, there was a bit, give it to him. So yesterday, there was a bit of a dig at me. I said, oh, you wrote the book, you didn't give me a copy. This is the last of the copies. Signed? Free signed. And as I said in the end, I signed while I was genuflecting. So as a matter of respect. So thank you, John.
Thank you. Thank you.
You can have drinks now.
Well done.
Well done. Well done.
Yep. So this draws us to a conclusion. A couple of comments. First of all, I had no idea that this panel was going to go on like this. So one of you guys didn't tell me it was going to happen.
Neither did I, John.
Number two, you aren't acting, Kyle. That's the way he acts at work all the time.
It's natural.
Oh, yeah, you know, I always wonder why on Zoom calls he's bouncing up and down. Now I know why, because he's sitting on his ball bouncing up and down. I guess unless you have any closing comments, I do want to again thank all of you for being here. We're going to have some drinks and some socializing out in the back. I believe we still have the augmented reality devices still going, so we can see some of those. Visit our sponsors, Digital Isle of Man, Element 22, LSEG, Orteca, Projected Group, Solidatus, and to all of you and to our hosts, UBS, for such a great facility. So thanks again. We'll see you next year.
John, one more thing before we go. Let me do this if I can. I want to acknowledge and thank the EDMA team. Sadie, why don't you lead the crowd up here, if you could.
There you go.
Carol, here, you got that. I've got a mic. Carol, come on up. Let's go. Let's get the team. Oh, Denise. Yeah, Denise. That's right. Where's Chiara? Where's Stella? Let's go. Everybody up here. Hey, aside from the skit, there was a lot of work put into today. But
one more.
Mr. Mark, come on in. Well, I didn't notice you with the suit and tie. I just want to say thank you to this team for sure, and especially Carol and Denise and Chiara for being basically here, and everybody being in charge of running these things. They look relatively simple, but they're not, and this has been going on forever, and these folks work really hard and have done an excellent job. I also want to say hi to the eye in the sky, Michelle and Savannah, on the marketing team. You don't get to see her much at all, but they were up at 6:30 in the morning, or 6 this morning, working out the final slides and letting them dry and all that. So really good stuff. So I just want to say a thanks to everybody here, and congratulations. And John, I think it is time for drinks.
Yes,